cold in here tonight.
It's actually kind of nice.
We'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. Welcome H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council microphones are open for roll call.
Mayor Artis. Mayor Artis.
Still here.
Okay, sorry. Councilmember Akeson. Councilmember Sear.
Here.
Councilmember Grayab. Here. Councilmember Jensen. Councilmember Montalongo. Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Euler. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Here.
Councilmember Ruckriegel. And Councilmember Turner. You have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'd like to ask everyone to please join us and rise for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. As most of us have already heard this week, our former Mayor Dave Ransberg passed this week. Very strong person in our community, a pillar in our community for many years. So we'll ask everybody to please keep Dave's family in your thoughts and prayers.
It's okay with
We have one proclamation this evening for Small Business Saturday, so we'll ask Leslie and Shernika to meet me at the center podium.
Doctor?
Whereas the city of Peoria celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 28.8 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States and are responsible for 63% of net new jobs created over the past 20 years. And whereas small businesses employ 48% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and on average 33% of holiday shopping will be done at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants. Furthermore, 76% of all consumers plan to go to one or more small businesses as part of their holiday shopping. And the city of Peoria further supports our local businesses because they create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have recognized the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, now therefore I, Jim Artis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby proclaim November the 25th, 2017 as Small Business Saturday in Peoria, Illinois, and we encourage the residents of our community and communities across the country to support local and small businesses on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. We have Dr. Leslie McKnight from our Economic Development Department and also Shernika Cagle from the Chamber of Commerce, who are going to give us a little bit more information on this exciting shopper day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, residents, and friends. Now, our Office of Economic Development, we understand free markets, we understand commerce, and we especially understand e-commerce. So that's our new reality, and it is very tempting to go online and shop, especially for the holiday season, with discounts and specials. But we just want to just bring to your attention that there's many community and economic benefits for shopping local. When you shop local, your local tax dollars support public safety and public infrastructure, such as the Sheriff's Department, highway, police, fire, and public works. Shopping local builds community characters. Local businesses usually are coupled in low-traffic business corridors and provide these unique offerings and experiences that become destination places that attracts visitors and tourists. When you shop local, it builds more local jobs and more opportunities. Small businesses are a major engine of job creation. There is data that shows small businesses create more jobs per sales dollar than chain competitors and several times more than large online retailers. Also, local businesses participate and sponsor local charity events and fundraisers. Shopping local adds to our economic vitality and sustainability. Each dollar that is spent at a local business returns an average of 3 times more money to the local economy than spending at national chains. So overall, shopping local sustains and grows our local economy, and we all benefit when we make that decision to buy within our community. So please make an effort to shop local this holiday season. Our office, in partnership with the Peoria Area Chamber of Commerce, Peoria County, and NDC, is making it even easier for us to shop local. Sharnika from the Chamber will tell us about our local Shop Local selfie contest.
There you go. Thank you, Leslie. So most people shop November 24th through the 26th, so that's technically Black Friday. So we have a contest, like Leslie said, in conjunction with the County of Peoria, the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, the City of Peoria, and the Chamber of Commerce. If you shop local at any of the businesses in Peoria County that weekend and take a selfie at that business with the business name on it and hashtag it Grow Peoria County, you'll be entered to win $100 in gift cards. So that's all you have to do is go on your social media. Most people have social media. You go on there. It can be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and hashtag Grow Peoria County with your selfie at a local business, and you'll be entered into a drawing. Thank you, everyone, and have a great holiday season.
Councilman Graham.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the joint City Council and Town Board meeting held on October 24, 2017, and the special City Council meetings held on October 11 and 31 of 2017 as printed.
Thank you. The motion is seconded by Councilmember Turner. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Seeing no lights, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
We're at our first public hearing, 17-331, a public hearing regarding the proposed creation of the Sterling Avenue Rockwood Road Special Service Area and to consider a proposed additional municipal sales tax of 1%.
We have a motion by Councilman Montalongo to open the public hearing, seconded by Councilman Euler. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. We are in a public hearing regarding the proposed creation of the Sterling Avenue, Rockwood Road Special Service Area, and to consider a proposed additional municipal sales tax of 1%. Anyone who would like to address the City Council, this would be the time. Second call, anyone who would like to address the council. Public hearing for the creation of the Sterling Avenue, Rockwood Road Special Service Area to consider a proposed additional municipal sales tax of 1%. Second call. Last call. Anyone who would like to address the City Council regarding the proposed creation of the Sterling Avenue, Rockwood Road Special Service Area and to consider a proposed additional municipal sales tax of 1%. Seeing none, I have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilman Montalongo, seconded by Councilman Turner. There's no discussion. Please cast your ballots to close the public hearing. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-332 is a public hearing regarding the proposed increase in the special municipal sales tax of 0.25% for the Westlake Special Service Area.
We have a motion to open this public hearing. Councilman Montalongo, seconded by Councilman Turner. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots to open the public hearing. Missing a couple votes, please. There we go. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'd like to open the public hearing regarding the proposed increase in the special municipal sales tax of 0.25% for the Westlake Special Service Area. Anyone who would like to address the council on this issue? Second call. Third and last call. Anyone who would like to address the council in this public hearing regarding the proposed increase in the special municipal sales tax of 0.25% for the Westlake Special Service Area. Seeing none, we have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilman Montalongo, seconded by Councilman Turner. Seeing no discussion, please cast your ballots to close the public hearing. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
We're at the consent agenda. 17-333 is a communication from the city manager and the community development director with a request to concur with the recommendation from the Heart of Illinois Homeless Continuum of Care for the funding allocation of the 2017 to 2018 Emergency Solutions Grant to specified agencies. 17-334 is a request to approve and accept the Partnerships to Reduce Violent Crime grant from the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority in the amount of $160,983. 17-335 is a request to approve the low bid of Mobutrex Incorporated in the amount of $33,160 for the purchase of LED signal lights. 17-336 is a request to authorize the execution of a contract with Resource Management Associates in the amount of $42,860 to administer the Fire Battalion Chief Promotional Examination. 17-337 is a request to approve an agreement which supersedes all previous agreements with the East Bluff Neighborhood Housing Services regarding the use of the Special Service Area funds for 2018. 17-338 is a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance removing the local landmark designation for property located at 401 Northeast Monroe Street. 17-339 is a request to adopt an ordinance levying a tax for 2018 for the East Bluff Neighborhood Housing Services Special Service Area and direct the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance with the county clerk to allow this tax to be extended as provided by law. 17-340 is a request to adopt an ordinance to vacate 7,693 square feet of West Arrowhead Street and this is property known as 2229 and 2305 North Crest Drive. 17-341 is a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with the retail sale of alcohol at Azteca Mexican Restaurant, 319 Main Street, contingent upon the issuance of the certificate of occupancy with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. 17-342 are appointments by Mayor Ardis to the Downtown Advisory Commission with a request to concur of Paige Dodson and Gary Roberts. 17-343 is the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District's 2017 audited financial statements with a request to receive and file, and that completes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any items to remove from consent this evening? Councilman Regenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Items 17-337 and 17-339.
337, 339. Any other items to remove from consent? I'm seeing no lights. We have a motion to accept the other items by Councilman Sear, seconded by Councilman Turner. Please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
17-337 is the agreement with the East Bluff Neighborhood Housing Services regarding of the SSA funds for 2018.
Okay. Councilmember Regenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move, rather than move for approval, move for a deferral to our first meeting in December.
Okay. Motion to defer, seconded by Councilwoman Moore. Is there any discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
And 17-339 is the request to adopt the ordinance levying the tax for 2018 for the East Bluff Neighborhood Housing Services Special Service Area.
Thank you. Councilman Regenbach.
Thank you. And again, I would move for a deferral to our first meeting in December.
Seconded by Councilwoman Moore. Discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
We are at regular business. 17-344 is a presentation from the Fire and Police Commission with a request to receive and file the annual performance goals report covering the period of July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a joint presentation from the Police Department, the Fire Department, the Police and Fire Commission, and by, I think we're going to have some members of the NAACP that might say a few words as well, regarding the efforts that the city has been undertaking to diversify our police and fire departments. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Lisa Snow, who is going to present the police, and then we have Chief Macklin who's going to be presenting to the information on the fire, and I'm going to hand off the clicker so that we can go forward. So,
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. We are really appreciative of the fact that we have an opportunity to present to you tonight the work that we have done over the last approximately 3 years with the Fire and Police Commission, with the Fire Department, with the Police Department, and with the NAACP, the committee that we worked on really for a very long summer. Every Saturday we met to try to come up with ways to increase our diversity on the Police and Fire Department. First thing we kind of want to talk to you about is the Explorer program, okay? The Explorer program is our way of growing our own department. These are young people, 14 to 20 years old, in the case of the fire department to 21 years of age. These young people may or may not have thought about being police officers or firefighters before. We reach out to them and we try to get them interested in the fun things of being police officers and firefighters. It is a way for us to keep them interested, to keep them really enthused about being police or firefighters, and hopefully we don't lose them to other agencies, other institutions that may want the best and the brightest like we do. We're instilling a commitment to community service. These kids go out every day, pretty much working in the community. They do community gardens. If anyone was able to see the Halloween party that we had about 1,500 people that came to the Halloween party. The Explorers were there, and the fire department Explorers are doing a lot of amazing community events as well. So we're growing our own department. It's kind of like a farm team. Okay? We have young people here that we feel are going to really make a difference, and we take them, we raise them to some extent, and try to keep them interested in being police officers. Here's some pictures of some of our police and fire explorers.
Thank you. In regards to the Peoria Fire Explorers program dynamics, we have about 23, 25 individuals participating in this program. And you see the demographics that there's 77% Caucasian, 18% African American, and 5% Asian.
Our demographics for the Peoria Police Explorers, this is current demographics. It's based on approximately 26 individuals that we have currently in the Explorer program. That number fluctuates frequently up and down. But right now we're at 50% white, 38% African American, 3% Asian, and 9% Hispanic. Our cadet program. Our cadet program, you guys are all aware and familiar with the cadet program. We've done an incredible amount of work to get our cadet program to be incredibly professional. We want these young people to be able to understand what policing is about, understand what the department is about, to carry forth our mission, right, and to be ready to actually become police officers. We have a very challenging FTO program. The fire department is their training program is also very challenging. If we can get them ready as cadets, we have a much better chance of keeping them in the long run. The Peoria Police Cadet Program, we hired 10 since 2016. 40% were white, 30% African American male. 20% were African American female, and 10% were Hispanic. The current cadet program, we're at 7. We have 43% that are white, 14% African American male, 29% African American female, and 14% Hispanic male.
In regards to the Fire Department's cadet program, one thing we're extremely excited about this program, it is a great opportunity for these young men and women to have that experience if they want to enter into this profession. We had this program approximately about 25 years ago, but then it was disbanded. We brought it back, and we see that, as you see the numbers here, 17% Caucasian male, 33% African American male, 17% African American female, and 17% Hispanic male, and 17% Caucasian female. These were 2 hiring periods. We hired a 2016 class and a 2017 class for a total of 6. And how that it really reflects our community. And that's what we want this program to do, to reflect our community. It's growing our own. We're building our future with this program. Currently, we have 5. We've made some changes, and these programs will change, and so our demographics have changed now in regards to we have our numbers. Of the 5, there's 20% Caucasian male, 40% African American male, 20% Hispanic male, and 20% Caucasian female. And one of the uniqueness about this program is that we allow them to participate with our active firefighters. They're getting this apprenticeship, a great hands-on experience. They're learning about inspections and investigations and emergency medical services, hazardous materials, a great deal of community knowledge in which they are involved in. So again, a good way, a good tool of developing your future workforce. This young man on the right of the screen, he is, I'll say, one of our stellar cadets. This individual was at the crossroad of life, and how that him being involved in our program, which is a 3-year program, he was able to complete all of his certifications within the year. And how that if he was of the right age, he's only 19, but if he was 21 years of age, this is an individual in which you want to hire. And this is what the program wants to meet. We want to meet these individuals and change their lives and provide a positive, productive citizen in our community.
Our recruitment efforts. Our recruitment efforts have had to really expand and get more and more complex because we're trying to attract the best and the brightest. And when you start talking about growing our own, like I mentioned before, we have basically our farm team, which is our Cadet and Explorer program. We're also casting this wide net. Okay, we look at advertising not just like we used to do when I first came on the job in the newspaper. What we do is we advertise social media, okay, and billboards. Billboards are still extremely effective, and you have a couple of examples here that we provided for you. We put them all over the city, and especially in the neighborhoods where we want to attract the most diversity. We recruit from other trades. There are certainly people that we have hired in the fire and police department that at one time were welders or sheet metal workers, etc. We've said, hey, maybe you would like to be a police officer. I myself thought about being an attorney, but I was recruited to be a police officer, and I've been here for now 28 years. So we're recruiting from these other fields and other trades, other cities. And when we prepare our candidates for testing, the testing process is really complex, and there's a lot of parts to it. So we have our HR department call these individuals and explain to them, hey, you need to send this paperwork in, okay? You need to be on top of this, turn this in. And then we teach them how to interview. Okay? We teach them how to interview, and we teach them how to dress for an interview. So those are some of the things that we're offering to the young people that come in. So we're excited about those things. This is based on the best practices in the United States, but it's also our own ideas and thoughts. So I think we're going kind of above and beyond what is being done at a national level to try to recruit. Hiring our new officers. As you can see, these are some photographs of our new officers. We have been rather successful, we feel, in hiring some new. We're not there yet, but we're on the right path. So on the top, you'll see some new police officers being sworn in, a lot of new police officers being sworn in, especially some women, which is nice to see. And on the bottom, you're going to see the fire department cadets. Okay, so the next 3 slides that you're going to see are from the police department, and what I want you to notice is the change. Okay, so in 2015, we were hiring 67% white men. Okay, this is our current demographics of what we hired in 2015. 11% were African American male, 11% Asian male, and 11% other male. Look at the change. 46% were white male in 2016. 17% African American male, 13% African American female, 4% Hispanic male, and 21% Caucasian female. And in 2017, 42% have been white males, 17% African American males, 8% Hispanic males, 8% Hispanic females, and 25% white females. So you see these numbers changing and changing year by year.
In regards to the fire department, in 2015, we did not onboard any new hires. And so we began with our 2016 demographics. And in 2016, we hired 2 classes for a total of 20 And of those classes combined, we have 7% Caucasian male, 25% African American male, and 5% Hispanic male. This is a tremendous level of progress for us. Prior to 2016, it was approximately 9 years before we hired individuals from the protective class. And so we see we're turning a corner. We're on the right pathway. And look at that in 2017. That's tremendous. 100% African American male. We only hire one person, though.
Whenever we talk about hires, it's equally as important to talk about separations. Approximately 60 years ago, 60 years ago, we had in Peoria what was called the Richwoods annexation. At that period in time when Phil and I were babies, approximately 30 police officers were hired. 30 years later, we are ready to retire. So what we are having at this particular time is a loss of a large number of police officers in 30-year cycles. This is the 30 years. So when you start looking at who are we hiring, you have to look at, too, who are we replacing? We are losing officers as quickly and more quickly sometimes as we can replace them. So currently, our separations from 2015 to 2017, there were 67 white males that the police department lost through retirement or through resignations. African American male was 10%, Hispanic male was 6%, 4% of our Asian males, 4% of our Caucasian females, and 10% of our African American females left during that time period.
In regards to the fire separations from that 2-year period, we see 81% Caucasian male, 7% African American male, 4% Hispanic male, 4% Asian male, and 4% Caucasian female. And as Chief Snow indicated, we're constantly trying to replace as individuals are vacating these positions, and so it is quite a challenge.
Okay, our current demographics for the Peoria Police Department, at 73% are white males, 12% African American male, 2% Hispanic male, 2% Asian male, Caucasian male, female is 8%, African American female 2%, Hispanic female at 1%, and other is at 1%. So we have a ways to go, but this is a process. This is not going to happen overnight. We are not going to reflect the community overnight. It's going to take time, and a lot of it has to do with the separations as well as the hiring process that we're doing and the recruitment process that we're doing.
Our demographics as of September 20th, our workforce, 83% Caucasian male, 14% African American male, 1% Hispanic male, 1% Asian male, and 1% Caucasian male. And that is as of September 20th. These numbers are constantly changing as well. They will, change again before probably the end of this year as well. At this point, we're going to be turning over to Mr. Hooks for the recommendation. But before that, I just want to mention a couple things. One, in regards to the police explorers and fire explorers, we do have, to keep it interesting, we have a friendly competition going on between the police and fire explorers. It's the Stuff a Bus campaign. Out at fire stations, you can bring your canned goods and help, of course, the fire department explorers defeat the police explorers. So that's what we want. And the other thing is that our current hiring list, I think it's about 31 individuals on that. Our short list, we say we interview about 72 individuals, so we have a short list, I think about 31. But the first 16 individuals, we call it the Dream Team. The Dream Team is one of the most impressive lists I've ever seen. It has African Americans and Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Caucasian Americans. It really reflects our community very beautifully. And we're trusting that we'll be able to to be able to get into that list in the forthcoming years. So we see the results of our hard work as far as our recruitment committee, those things, these initiatives as far as changing some of the onboarding processes, and so we're seeing our hard work come to fruition. Mr. Hooks.
Good evening. My name is Al Hooks, and I was drafted to present the update on the recommendations. But prior to getting into the recommendations, just a brief background as to how we got here today. When Don Jackson, the past president of the NAACP, had the office, he was quite vocal about the need for the city to improve minority hiring. The 2010 census has Peoria at about 40% minority. At the time, that number was not the same within city employment. Don's concerns became a catalyst for a meeting and for a committee that was established in probably early 2015. That committee consisted of the city manager, fire chief, assistant chiefs, personnel, same for the police department, police community relations, and NAACP. There were 18 people, as I stated, on that committee. And after 3 or 4 meetings, it became obvious that not a lot was going to get done with 18 people. A subcommittee was established that was chaired by Dr. Rita Ali from ICC and myself to work with 8 individuals from police, fire, and HR to come up with a recommendation back to the broader committee. We met every Saturday morning, as Lisa said. Actually, a lot of fun those Saturday mornings, really. But we accomplished a lot also. The result of those meetings was this document, which was provided to all council persons and the mayor. This document had all the data and research quantified, but it also had 10 recommendations. And those recommendations is what I've been asked to update this evening. What I will do is go through the recommendation, read it, and then show what the status is. Recommendation number 1, pass-fail examination for police officer applicants. For police officer applicants, the written test will be scored for a passing score. It will no longer be rank ordered. Applicants who pass the written test with a passing score predetermined by an inclusive police management team and the city's Human Resource Department will be placed in the candidate pool with no rank order. Additionally, due to state statute which requires rank order selection of firefighters, this will not apply to firemen. If the 2017 and 2018 goals are not achieved by police department, then this pass-fail goes into effect. And we'll have the numbers for 2017 and 18 at the end. Recommendation number 2, and this has been referenced, develop an ongoing high-priority recruitment plan. Detailed recruitment plans will be created or enhanced for both police and fire, with high priority given to the recruitment of minority applicants. The plan will describe aggressive outreach and recruitment methods and include interview training for screening committee members. The police department's new 2015 recruitment plan was developed specifically to attract minority and protected class individuals, and the fire department adopted that same plan and effort. For 1 and 2, you see 2019 is for recommendation 1, and recommendation 2 is underway and was outlined. Recommendation 3, change to semi-annual testing frequency for police and fire. Testing twice a year will give candidates more opportunity to be placed in a hiring pool. It will also allow the department to refresh candidate pools more frequently. Minority and protected class candidates who have recently entered the job market are in high demand, and it is necessary for our departments to act quickly when hiring. That also has been completed. Recommendation number 4, reassign the 30 points in the fire department selection process. The firefighter selection process allows for the assignment of up to 30 points to criteria categories for which a slight advantage would be granted. A maximum of 5 points may be awarded per category. As part of the due diligence process in this project, an adjustment was made to the process to grant 5 residency points to applicants that reside within the city of Peoria. Completed. Next, recommendation number 5, provide city residency points for police officer candidates. Police officer applicants shall have added to their composite score, which includes both the interview conducted by the police department and the Fire and Police Commission, 5 points if they have established residence in the city of Peoria. That also has been completed. Recommendation number 6, establish a public safety explorers program within District 150. That program was outlined in the early comments by both of these individuals. The program will explore careers within police and fire, including firefighters, police officers, and dispatchers. And as from earlier, completed. Recommendation number 7, establish police cadet program, which has been completed. Recommendation number 8, establish a firefighter cadet program, which you saw referenced earlier. Recommendation number 9, annual performance goals, monitoring and reporting. Performance goals will be established, measured, and monitored to assure that the 10-year vision can be fulfilled. That 10-year vision is that Peoria Police Department personnel and Peoria Fire Department personnel will mirror the demographics of this city. Semi-annual progress reports to the public and City Council will be required for the Police and Fire Commission with support from police and fire agencies. And you're getting that first update this evening. The replacement goals are as follows. The Peoria Police Commission ranks are currently 18.6%. That was in 2015. The minority percentage should increase at a minimum of 8% annually to achieve 40% by 2025. The Fire Department Commission ranks are 14% minority. The minority percentage should increase at a minimum of 11% annually to achieve 40% by 2025. Both of these numbers will be adjusted based on updated census data. I'll get that later. Diverse interview and criteria panels. All interview and criteria panels will be diverse and inclusive in terms of race, gender, and rank. That's the final recommendation. You can go to the next one. This chart, I hope you can see it. And if you can't, I think we'll read it. Can everyone see this chart? With no heads nodding, I'm going to assume that's a yes. The Peoria Police Department, as stated earlier, in 2015 was at 18.6%. The Fire Department was at 14%. These numbers show, the bottom two lines show the number that the department should be at the end of each of those years. You can read across. What it shows us is, in 2016, the police department goal was 20.1% minority. It was 19.1%. In 2017, goal 21.7%. It was 19.5%. Fire Department, goal 2016, 15.5%. Actual 13.9. 2017, Fire Department goal 17.1, actual 16.0. Progress has been made, but it's these semi-annual updates that will enable the community and the council to assure we achieve our goal in 2025. Any questions for anyone here?
Any questions for Mr. Hooks or the Chiefs? Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend the police and fire department and the NAACP for this report. I think what this report does is punctuate the need to continue the cadet programs in both departments. It's going to be difficult for us to reach these goals if we're not planting the seeds now. My fear is that if you wash away the seeds today, you're going to fall back a few years, because those 16 prime folks that you talked about in fire that you would really like to get those on, they're not going to hang on forever. And if you thought they were good, somebody else thinks they're good too. And so I want to thank you all for the tremendous amount of work that you put into this and the analysis that you've done to this, to the NAACP and the committee that helped pull this together, to Mr. Jackson, who had the forethought to bring this forward. I remember those early meetings. I think I attended maybe the first two. And you were right. I thought, oh my goodness, nothing's going to happen here. And I was wrong, and I was glad to know that you guys hung in there and took care of business, and that the city stepped up to assist in that process. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I join Councilwoman Moore in commending Mr. Hooks and the committee, and of course Mr. Jackson for spearheading this and all the work that the city's done. Before you sit down, Mr. Hooks, I actually have a question for you. The way you ended your report was with the figures about from 2016 and 2017, and how we haven't met either of those goals. And we're just, starting out, and I know some things are underway. What else can we do? I mean, I guess it's a two-part question. Why do you think we didn't meet those goals?
On the why we didn't meet them, I think it's more appropriate for police and fire to answer that. Short answer, the hiring percentages weren't sufficient to achieve that goal. But in terms of specifics?
In terms of specifics, I think that we lost officers basically as fast as we could hire them. I know that there has been a very concerted effort on our part. We have put a lot of time and a lot of energy into trying to recruit the very best and to meet this goal. And this is not something that's going to be done overnight. This is something that takes a commitment of an entire city to achieve. And obviously we're open to ideas as they come along, but in the long run, we do feel that we have made progress, we are going in the right direction, and that we will meet these goals. We definitely need to be reflective of our community in the police and fire department.
Can I have a quick follow-up to that? Is our increase in the minorities that were hired in both 16 and 17, is that pretty consistent with the percentage increases that we were having before, or was it a substantially higher increase?
Fire, it was substantially better. I mean, we were having 0% from a diverse population. So that was tremendous for us. And in regards to your other question, we saw in our one of the problems, we have a two-part hiring process, our candidate physical ability test and our written test. We saw on the first component, you have to take care of the physical ability test and move to the second portion. Several individuals that were considered protective class, they didn't make it through that physical training portion. And so we did something a little bit different with this current list we have, what we call the open gym session, where we're seeing a substantial improvement in their physical ability. We had several sessions before the actual testing process to give them opportunity to experience it and then to be successful.
Okay, that's all. I had one more follow-up. I guess, is the committee going to continue to meet? on other ideas? I know you've made these recommendations, but so that we continue to narrow the gap and reach our goals?
I would like to say that a portion of this committee just presented our ideas at the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So there was a group, part of which was on the committee, Dr. Rita Ali, and our ideas we're definitely going to continue to meet. She and I have talked a lot, especially about recruiting women for the job. And we are in the process of going to be writing a paper, actually, for an international journal, and submit it, and hopefully it'll get published. But we feel that these ideas are progressive, and we're going to continue to stay on this path. We're not going to walk away from this at this point.
Okay, and one more follow-up. How are our numbers in comparison to similar cities of size and in Illinois?
Okay, I'm going to give this to Chief Mitchell for you.
Okay.
Answer this.
Good evening. I'm not sure if I can answer that question accurately tonight, but having conversations with departments our size, Rockford and Springfield, and even the state police, our numbers look better than most. But to address one of your questions earlier about why we didn't hit a number in a specific year, many times we offer jobs to applicants and they turn them down at the last minute. They decide that it's too far away from home to move to Peoria, or for whatever another reason. Maybe it's a competitive job offer, so it doesn't necessarily reflect who we almost hired. So that's also a factor in that as well.
Okay, what about, do you know for fire, how it compares to other cities?
The fire, and looking at our comparables, we found that they're having some of the similar issues. As Chief Mitchell said, we are a bit above what they have as far as their numbers, but they're experiencing the same thing as far as the demographics.
If anyone else, did you want to respond?
I want to make one comment. Your comment about difficulty is accurate. This is not an easy goal. One of the things that's been added to the city manager and chiefs is this isn't as part of the evaluation, accomplishing these goals. But I think more importantly, it's up to the community and the council to make sure these goals are achieved. That's one of the reasons for this semi-annual update. This is the first one. But I think the community and the council are the key to achieving these goals. A part of the reason we wanted to make it an ordinance was to ensure it had a long life, and it didn't just end as the city manager changes or the council persons change or the mayor change. So it is up to we, the community first, and you as council to make this happen. I think if we work together, and it is going to be tough, we can make this happen. And I see it as very important for our youth. Police and fire have very well-paying jobs. And if we can increase the minorities getting those well-paying jobs, we can help diffuse some of the hopelessness in our community, I think. It may be a pebble in the water, but it's a start.
Any other questions for the committee members? I think I would like to join the others and thank you, the committee, for the report. Thanks for the work you're doing. I know that the council is very focused on achieving the goals that we've established, and we look forward to working with you to do that. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that Lynn Scott Pearson is here from the Fire and Police Commission, and I think she may have a few words also that she might want to say. I just wanted to make sure that we included the Fire and Police Commission in the conversation as well.
Thank you. As he said, my name is Lynn Pearson, and I am the chairperson of the Police and Fire Commission. And along with me this evening, I have Tom Jackson, Tom Burke, and Junior Watkins, who are members of the committee. Now, I have a cold, so my voice is going to maybe boom a little bit as I go along. Just forgive me for that one. The Fire and Police Commission acts as a civil service authority in the recruitment and promotion of all commissioned police and fire personnel. Commission members are appointed by the mayor and with the concurrence of the council. As a part of our charge, the Fire and Police Commission monitors status of recruiting efforts and the employment process that directly facilitate the goal of achieving police and fire departments that reflect our community. In addition, we monitor staffing levels relative to those departments and their mission in improving public safety for the city of Peoria. As the mayor and council are aware, the Committee on Police and Fire Diversity appointed a subcommittee to analyze concerns about the majority representation among commissioned police and fire personnel. The council adopted and made a commitment to this committee, an overall goal of reaching the level of diversity in our fire and police departments, representative of the diversity in our community. The council directed that we, the Fire and Police Commission, support the commitment, and we did. We did so by implementing changes in our timelines, our processes, and our procedures. These changes and the effort and the focus necessary to achieve this goal is evidenced by our recently newly hired police and fire personnel. In addition, these efforts resulted in more diversity eligibility lists for both the fire and the police department. While recognizing the status and concerns regarding the current budget, we would urge the mayor and the city council to recognize that we have achieved a real momentum towards meeting this important goal. We are hopeful that your deliberations and budget decisions will support the continued efforts at achieving this important goal, as well as providing reasonable staffing levels to meet the ever-changing and challenging needs for the public safety in our committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We would also like to add our thanks to the Police and Fire Commission for their work in this regard as well. I'm seeing no further lights for discussion, so I would entertain a motion to receive and file. Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilmember Jensen. If there's no further discussion, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-345 is a communication from the city manager with a request to adopt an ordinance levying an addition to sales tax within the Westlake Special Service Area.
Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. The petitioner has requested to defer this item to our next meeting in November.
Okay. Motion to defer, seconded by Councilman Turner. Discussion on the deferral. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-346 is a communication from the city manager with a request to adopt the following. A is an ordinance establishing the Sterling Avenue Rockwood Road Special Service Area in Peoria, and B is an ordinance levying a sales tax for the Sterling Avenue Rockwood Road Special Service Area. And if we could have separate motions and votes on those, I'd appreciate it.
We can. Thank you. Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. Before saying a few words about this development, I'd like to start out with a motion here for approval. So I'd like to approve item 17-346, item A.
Okay.
Do I do A and B, or should I?
We'll just do A, and then after we finish discussion, we'll do B.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve on A. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Councilman Montalongo.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, thank you for your patience as we had a great amount of public discussion over special service areas and the use of it over this development. I'm sure you heard many different opinions, and I think it brought forward good food for thought. I'm excited and happy to have worked on this project and hopeful that this proposal is victorious tonight. I would like to give special recognition to Assistant City Manager Chris Setti for his diligent work in bringing forward all the information and helping put this together. Tonight, before you, we have a development that will bring into Peoria one of the most sought-after restaurant franchises, Portillo's. Portillo's is described by Forbes as extraordinary. Portillo's itself is a great American story of a little hot dog stand started in Chicago area back in the 60s and now has over 50 stores across multiple states with many different menu selections. And of course, Peoria wants it. This location that Portillo's wants happens to be at probably one of the most expensive retail spots in our city, and the developer doesn't own all the properties necessary to fit a Portillo's restaurant. Thus, we begin our discussion of a special service area to help with the improvements to the area. Our discussion begins with the request of this development to be in a special service area and receive a 1% sales tax and will expire when $650,000 is reached or 15 years, whichever is first. The city will receive 2% for administration fees. I also want to add that if this development fails, there is no loss for the city. So there is no actual monetary loss if this development fails. So let's talk about the development and how this applies. We have about 3 parcels of property being assembled where tenants' leases have to be broken and have to be relocated, and a property purchased that was not for sale. The opportunity of bringing these properties together will bring in about $50,000 in new real estate taxes, and over a 30-year period of time equates to about $1.7 million. This happens when a new $2 million Portillo's restaurant is built on that site. In a special service area, construction must be done at prevailing wages. We also know that the Portillo's that was built in Bloomington also used Peoria union labor. We are anticipating that there will be about $1 million spent on wages for construction. We hear this project is supported by local union, and I think a couple council people may have had more discussion with the union leaders, and hopefully they have some comment on that here in a little bit. Concerning the sales tax for the city, in order to calculate, we've heard a range of between $4 million and $8 million a year that the sales revenues will be generated from Portillo's. So I took an average of, let's say, $6 million a year for the sales tax revenue. Now, there's 2 parts to our sales tax. First of all, there's the 2.75% Peoria sales tax, which is, if we're going off $6 million, $165,000. There's a 2% restaurant tax, which really goes to fund our civic center, which is about $120,000 a year. So adding those up over 30 years is approximately $8.5 million in revenue for the city. Portillo's itself will spend about $2 million a year in wages. They will hire about 125 full-time employees, 200 at first, and then settle in around 125. While most of these positions will pay around minimum wage, they are important jobs to many people who work them for many different reasons. Someone in high school, college, needing to work a second job. These are important and valuable jobs to our community. So that over 30 years is about $60 million. If you add them all up, it's about a $70 million economic impact to our city. There will be overflow business to the surrounding businesses. As a good friend of mine who is a restaurateur said that when Chick-fil-A and Chipotle came in, they've seen an increase in business. I have been working to build momentum in this specific area as a city councilman, and this is a retail, restaurant, hotel, and building on entertainment area known as the Uptown District. I have started a business roundtable of business owners from this area to meet and discuss and implement ways to grow businesses in this area. By adding a Portillo's in our area, we will help businesses in our area, and I'm hopeful that because of this development, we're able to land another business or so. Mayor and Council, this is a great development and will have great economic impact in our community, and I ask this council support this item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, I have Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start first by giving a few clarifying points when we start the discussion about SSAs. SSAs are a development tool, whether it be property or sales tax tool for generating development that do not cost every taxpayer in the city money. We're not talking about raising the property taxes for the city of Peoria. We're not talking about raising the sales taxes for the city of Peoria. The cost associated with this is paid for by those who choose to frequent the establishment in question. Additionally, a fee can be collected as an administrative cost for the municipality who is managing that special service area, in this case, the city of Peoria. And that fee is something that can be put towards managing our operations as we collect those costs. The revenue can only be spent on specific purposes that are outlined as part of that SSA agreement. It's not just a money grab. It's not the developer or the owner of the business collecting this money as it comes in through the cash register. It comes into the city, and we have a set prescribed number of costs that are approved to be able to use that money for, and so that's how it will be administered. Going on to some of our previous development practices, since 2014, the city of Peoria has approved 28 incentives. A couple of those have already been restaurants. So I've heard, as mentioned along these lines several times, this sets a precedence when it comes to a single-use restaurant. That's not the case. Burger King and Obed and Isaac's both had incentives attached to those that the city of Peoria approved. Many of the incentives that have been used in the past have tied City of Peoria money into them, and in a lot of cases, the City of Peoria has lost money in some of them, not unlike other areas that have gotten into development. But this is something that does not tie our money into the program. If the business doesn't make it, we are not making bond payments. We are not trying to shore up the accounts we took the money out of. It does not have a long-term financial impact on the city of Peoria like Cub Foods, as we've talked about in the past. Also heard mentioned in a few cases that it isn't fair to the businesses that are in Westlake. Well, for clarity, Westlake already has an SSA applied to it, so this is sitting next to that. And then going on to this project itself, I didn't know the developer, never met the developer before this conversation started. I wasn't really thrilled about this concept going into it either, being in real estate myself, and I've never come and asked for an incentive for anything, so I wasn't overly thrilled about it. But I've met several times with the developer and gone through his plans, and I understand what the request was. I didn't really care for the initial request, and he seemed amicable to negotiating that. I've met with the city as well initially, and I'm sure other council members have as well, but just for my own standpoint, I came back to the city after meeting with the developer and said it sounds like he's agreeable to doing some negotiating here. I think we need to do some negotiating to put together a package that is successful and can be completed here, and I feel like that is what has been done. We've drastically reduced the number of years that are tied to this. We've also changed how it's structured in terms of if the developer chooses to sell the land, the SSA goes away so it doesn't make the property more marketable. And we've significantly reduce the financial obligation that's tied in here. So this gives us an opportunity to go out and try and attract businesses that are going to bring dollars into the city that we didn't previously have. This restaurant has been reported is going to be a large regional draw, and it will bring revenue streams into the city to help some of the challenges that we have. So for those reasons tonight, I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this item? Councilmember Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could ask just a couple questions for Director Setti, if possible. Tell me a little bit about sales. I don't know how much numbers we can disclose, but how many restaurants in the city of Peoria have an annual sales of, let's say, $3 million plus? Annual sales? Yes, sir. $3 million. So we don't have any numbers what restaurants, existing restaurant sales are.
I imagine we would get the numbers, but I don't have the numbers. I know we get sales tax data that is confidential from the state, but I wouldn't be prepared.
So tonight, we're talking about $6 million of annual sales, correct?
I believe that's an estimate that we're using.
Okay. Now, to use your words there, we're talking about a shift within the city. So it's not $6 million brand new dollars. Am I correct? Can you explain a little bit what a shift means?
Sure. And in the council communication, I tried to, of course, because we don't have it yet, we can't figure out what those patterns will be. Obviously, it's going to draw a lot of meals that may have happened originally at another restaurant. We also know, just from anecdotal evidence and from what we've seen in other communities, that it will likely pull a lot of people into the community who might have had that same meal in the adjoining community, or because of its proximity to I-74, people who are just driving through from from the Quad Cities to Indianapolis, and they see that there's a Portillo's, they may hop off the interstate. So what we tried to figure out was if 30%, so if 70% was normal city business. I'm sorry. Usually my voice is loud enough. I don't know if that's any better.
Okay. Oh, thank you. And I apologize. It sounded just fine to me. If just 30% was coming from outside of people who would ordinarily buy a meal, in the city of Peoria, that's what the impact is, about $85,000 to the city in net new taxes. Of course, we'll never really be able to tell what that is, unless we start doing license plate searches in the parking lot to see where it is that people are coming from and what their ordinary habits would be. We think it'll be a significant increase in sales within the city of Peoria.
So using your numbers here, 70%, let's say, is existing business, correct? We're talking about the shifting. It'd be local, 70% would be of local businesses, annual sales, local restaurants. 70% of $6 million, we're looking at $4.2 million times 20 years. I mean, we're in a ballpark of $80 to $85 million. That money will be shifting from mom and pop stores in our area to Portillo. So, and for me, nobody has called me so far. There's no mom and pop stores that have called me to say, this is not good. Because people understand about competition. And people in Peoria, the mom and pop stores in Peoria, do welcome the competition. So nobody's complaining about the competition. What people are complaining to me about is the fact that we're looking at possibly giving a developer an extra $600,000 to compete against $80 million of possible loss to existing mom and pop stores. To me, there's a big cloud of smoke in front of me about this vote, because tonight, as I met with the developer a few times, his attorney, Mr. Montalongo, and I told all of them that basically, we do welcome. I mean, I'm a big customer for Portillo. I love the Portillos. But the vote tonight for me, when I talk to people, it's not about if we want Portillo here or not. The vote for me is about a developer that's requesting 1% extra on sales for the next 15 years or so until he gets over a little bit above over $600,000. And then really, he has two projects, okay? Because I met with him twice. I know what's going on. Two projects. Project A, his return on investment would be about 12%. 12%, not Project A. Project B, its return would be 7%. So Mr. Torsch asked me, Dennis, would you take the 7%? Of course I would. Okay, as a small business owner, as a financial advisor, 12% or 7% are good return on an investment. Okay, now we could debate that, but the bottom line is I'm not sure why we would be willing to give another $600,000 to the developer to increase the 12% or the 7%. All the calls I've got and emails I've received so far, they want me to vote no on this project. So I have to vote no tonight because I'm not willing. I mean, I know 12 or 7% is a great return for an investor, and I'm not willing to give them any more money to compete against our mom and pop stores. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the motion on the floor? Okay. Councilwoman Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I do have a question for you, Assistant City Manager, if you can see me through the podium, with regards to that 30% figure that you came up with. How did you come up with that?
It could have been 40%, it could have been 20%. I was trying to just have a guess.
So it is just a guess. We don't know.
I reached out to a colleague of the managers at SB Friedman who does economic analysis and asked him, and he said that this model of Portillo's is new. They've got one in Champaign now, and because everywhere before it's been in the Chicago suburbs for the most part. And so no one has really been able to establish a pattern. He did think there would be a significant shift in the marketplace, and so I just put 30% out. I felt it was relatively defensible but certainly not anything that I would bet on. I thought it was important if I hadn't put any number in there and just said, this is going to raise $540,000 in sales taxes, that would not have been accurate, because we do know that some of them it would be a sale that would maybe be happening elsewhere in the city of Peoria. So I put a figure in that I thought was reasonable.
Okay, so we don't know for sure if it's going to be more, if it's going to be less. That's just your basic guess.
Correct.
Okay. I am going to be supporting this project tonight, and I mean, Councilman Euler did a good job summarizing what's good about this project. I've been on this council for over 4 years, and we have had a lot of projects come to us, and different groups seeking us incentives. And in this case, as in the other two cases when I was on the council, when we were asked to approve an SSA, I did so because it does not present any risk to the city. As Councilman Euler pointed out, we're not loaning any money to this developer, to this business. It is going to bring in a substantial amount of money in sales tax revenue to us, along with property tax revenue and jobs, both at Portillo's and construction, local labor jobs when it's being built. Because it presents no risk to the city, I don't think it's similar to the other projects that have failed in the past where the city loaned money or did other things. I do wish that maybe it would have come forward after we had a policy discussion and set what our criteria would be for different economic development incentives. But I think this is a good project. I am pleased that we've negotiated a limit that it will not be passed on if the property is sold. and that we have limited it down to 15 years, but according to the projections, we think it'll be paid off in 11 years. If people don't want to pay that extra 1%, they don't have to go to Portillo's. So I will be supporting this. I think that it would be very good to have Portillo's here and to have that business here. I think it'll bring in a lot more sales revenue as well as property tax revenue and jobs than any other development that might go there in its place. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'm seeing no lights. Councilman Montalongo, do you want to close with anything here? Okay. Council, last call. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 8 ayes and 2 nays, voting no. Mayor Ardis and Councilman Sear. Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to have a motion to approve 17346, item B.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Turner. Further discussion, Councilman Montalongo. Okay. Anyone else on the motion? We have a motion to approve. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 8 ayes and 2 nays, voting no. Councilmember Sear, Mayor Ardis. Madam Clerk.
We're at unfinished business, 17-322. The first portion of this is a request by Councilmember Akeson for the following, is a request to reconsider item number 17-322, which pertains to the annexation and other matters concerning West Grange Hall Road.
Councilmember Akeson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought this forward for reconsideration because when I voted yes, and I think for many of the rest of us, when we voted yes, we were under the impression that the citizens who live near this project had been given ample opportunity to have conversations with the petitioner, and subsequently I've learned that that's not actually the case. So I'm wondering if we could, and perhaps this is not, I need some guidance here on how to do this, but could we defer this until community development has some time to organize some neighborhood meetings along with the district council person and anyone else that might be interested to work out some of these issues? Because it seems to me in some of the communication, there's a willingness to compromise or to come up with perhaps a few more requirements so that everyone, gets their concerns alleviated. And also, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this?
Councilman Akeson, the first thing we have to do before we do anything is have a reconsideration.
Oh, vote.
So, yeah, on the reconsideration.
Okay.
And then that opens up the door to whatever might
Okay,
happen.
well, I would like to move for us to reconsider this.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Montalongo. So we have discussion, and this is on the reconsideration. It's yes or no. It's not to go into all the details. Questions on the reconsideration? Okay. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion fails with 3 ayes and 7 nays, voting yes. Council members Akeson, Jensen, and Montalongo. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we're still at unfinished business. 17-326 is a communication from the city manager and finance director comptroller with a request to continue discussion of the 2018-2019 biennial budget. And you have 2 handouts on your desk. One is green, and it's the report backs, and then the second one is the budget reconciliation worksheet.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in front of you, Council, the budget report backs that we worked on after our last meeting 2 weeks ago. And I'll just quickly walk through the 9 report backs that we have for you. The first item was a request of Councilman Sear in terms of what were the percentages of the land area that would be part of the stormwater utility and how much impervious surface comes from each one of those different land types. Report back 8.2 is for Councilwoman Jensen. She had a series of revenue questions that she had asked about how much we might be able to raise with fire revenues if we revisited that issue, but didn't raise the permit fees. Also, how much revenue could be raised by increasing the false alarm fees but not registering the alarms? How much revenue could be raised by charging out-of-town people for fire services? And then how much revenue would need to be raised to reinstate the cadet program? And so that's in report back number 8.2 that is included there as well. We have some information on the response times of Truck 14 and Station 16 that are included in report back 8.3 at Councilwoman Jensen's request. And then also we mapped out drive times from Stations 16 and Station 11 as well. That's included in report back 8.4. There was a request to look at kind of the historical, where have structural fires occurred in the city. That's included in report back number 8.5. And then we have how many high-rises or tall buildings does Truck 14 currently cover? That's included in report back 8.6. There was a request from Councilman Graham about what was the percentage reduction in each department's budget in the general fund and what cuts were made to administration. That's included in 8.7. And then we had a follow-up to the discussion about Station 4 in the bathroom, where we tried to summarize the kind of the reporting process and everything that goes on with that for report back number 8.8. And then we have a summary that was sent out to our employees of at your request, we put together a budget survey for our employees. We had 51 employees take the survey. That letter that was sent back to all of the employees is included as report back number 8.9. So those are the quick summary of the report backs. The second handout has the budget reconciliation, and it's as of the votes and actions that council took through October 31st. So if you turn to the second page of that budget reconciliation that we handed out, it's the spreadsheet that has the gray boxes on the front page. If you turn to the second page, really we're down to just 2 items at the bottom of page 2 that we have to really look at, and that's the question of the recommendation that we had with the fire department and also the fire department revenues. And as we go into that, I think first what I'd like to do, I had an opportunity to sit down with the fire chief today and the assistant chief, and I'd like to adjust my recommendation that we provided to you in the budget, which was that we would decommission Truck 14. And my recommendation that I'd like to adjust would be that we would allow the chief the ability to manage the resources within his budget as would be allocated by the council. This budget that I recommended includes $20.35 million of expenses and resources that would be allocated for the operations of the fire department. In suppression, the fire department can operate if there are 53 people that are signed up to work that day, and they can run a full complement of the equipment that they have. If they're doing training currently, or if there's another reason an engine is placed out of service, if they don't have the staffing to manage that, if they can't fill those positions, they will run short. And so I think that's something that happens all the time with a great number of frequency during the course of the year. And this would simply task the fire chief with having to manage the operations and live within the budget authority that he was given him. If we look at this is very similar to the direction that we're giving the police chief. The police chief has 14 vacancies currently in his department. We know that he's going to be able to fill some of those positions in January. He's going to be able to go forward and put them into the PTI class. He's not going to be able to fill them right away. So he's going to have some positions that are vacant. He's going to be able to manage that during the course of the year. He's made some changes to his operations to handle it, how he's going to manage his fourth shift in his operations to address that and deliver some savings. I think the fire chief can do the same with maybe looking at some of the front office positions and how he structures that or reallocates some of those positions as well. So the fire department currently has about 18 vacancies. If he were able to do this, we'd be able to start to fill some of those vacancies right away. And we would be able to move forward with that and putting some more new officers out on the street to address some of the issues that we heard tonight with the diversity report. So I think that as a professional, I think the fire chief is eminently capable and his team is eminently capable of managing their operations to live within the budget allocation that the council gives them.
Okay, thank you. Did the chief want to speak to this, Mr. Manager? Or?
I would be happy to ask the chief to come forward and maybe say a few words about this.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor, Council. This has been a long process of working to create options, and this was probably the best option that we could come up with and work together under the budget that we've been given. So, like the manager said earlier, this option is giving the fire chief the opportunity and the responsibility and accountability to operate under the budget that we've been given, and we can do that.
Okay. Any questions for the manager or the chief in regards to the recommendation? Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess under this proposal, I think you said 53 people need to be on duty for all the engines to run. Is that? I may be saying it wrong, so can you clarify that?
53 personnel on shift to maintain a adequate staffing.
Okay, and so under this new recommendation or proposal, there will still be some vacancies not filled or job cuts?
Yes, there will still be some vacancies that we won't be able to fill under the proposal that we have right now, under this option.
Can you explain what those positions are, or do you know?
You know what, I can get those to you this week. I mean, I can forward those to the manager, and he can forward those out to everybody.
And then as a follow-up, what happens then if you don't have 53 people on duty one day?
If we don't have 53 personnel on duty for some reason, then a machine would be shut down.
Just be a temporary shutdown?
For the shift.
Do you anticipate that being a common thing, a frequent thing? Do you have any idea how often that would happen?
No, I don't have any idea, but I don't anticipate that it would be very often. I can get you some numbers on history, on what we've had in the past.
Okay, I think that would be helpful. I'd appreciate that. Have we ever had that situation before that you're aware of, where if someone didn't show up to work for some reason, you had to shut down an engine?
Not to my knowledge. No.
And I guess as a follow-up, if you're going to give us a follow-up report back, I'd like to know then what impact that would have on response times and the safety of the firefighters, that kind of thing.
I believe we could do that.
While I've got you up there, if I could ask a question about one of the report backs, I think it's report 8.2, with regards to proposed increase in fees related to the fire department. Under the report back and what's proposed here, it appears we could increase revenue by 205,000 about, or was it, if you read further, like 180, 175?
It's 175. I think that when we were putting it together, we thought there was some additional expense that's not correct. So that statement at the first beginning is incorrect. And I think one of the issues that the chief and I have to really walk through is making sure that we can bill and then we can collect. And I think that's the key with this, is that, you know, we may have that number of events that are going on that we could potentially bring in that revenue. We need to make sure that we're collecting that revenue as well.
Now, that 175, that doesn't include if we were to proceed with charging out of town residents with some of the services that we already provide. I believe the figure you gave was approximately 15,000 per year?
Correct.
Okay, so if we were to do both, that could potentially be, what, $190,000?
Roughly about 190. And then the third report back you had was if we were to simply look at raising the false alarm fines, and I think that we estimated at $7,000.
So that's in addition to that 175 also? So it would be, if we were to do all three, it would be close to $200,000.
Closer to 200,000.
So then my follow-up question to either you or the fire chief is, wouldn't that cover at least 2 positions in the fire department?
Perhaps. I mean, if the council's direction is to add the revenue and say we want to increase the expense, it would.
I mean, my thought is if we're going to raise fees in the fire department, and I know some of them haven't been raised in a time, we could do that to help save or protect a couple jobs in the fire department. Or I've also proposed, if the majority of the council wants to keep the cadet program, we could use some of that money to cover that expense, correct?
Well, the cadet program is going to be a little more problematic. There is a clause in the most recent contract that we have with the union that says if there's a reduction in resources in the fire department, that the cadet program will be eliminated.
Okay, so you would have to negotiate that.
We'd have to go back to the table with the union on that.
But I guess I just, you know, my reason for asking for reports back on increasing fees, it's always, the purpose of that is so that we can use that money to not cut somewhere else and to save a program or to save a job. And it is connected to the services of the firefighters, so I think it would make a lot of sense. And I hope that the council will consider that, because I am advocating that we do that. Thank you.
Chief, what value would there be to hiring 2 people?
Well, we would be able to, again, adjust our staffing appropriately. 2 people could be put back as floaters, which would still leave 1 shift short, because of, you know, operating under the 3 platoon system, we would have 1 shift that would still be 1 short if we did that. So the value would be to 2 shifts.
So my point is, 2 people doesn't do anything for a piece of equipment, because you need 3 people for 3 shifts, right?
It would what it would do for that piece of equipment would give that cushion, instead of having reaching that 53 with that extra person off sooner. It would give that cushion of you know, that extra person.
Okay. Thank you.
Bet.
Your light's still on. Do you have another question?
And as a follow-up question.
Okay.
So just to clarify, if we were to use that revenue to hire 2 floater firefighters, or I think you guys have a different term for them?
Floaters, yes.
Or bouncers, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Then those 2 bouncers could cover a shift when there's somebody that doesn't show up or calls in sick for some reason, so that it would make it less likely that you'd have to shut down an engine.
On 2 shifts, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Grabe?
This conversation has become surreal for me. there is no difference in the position of the administration. And the last time we were here, it's a cruel shell game being perpetrated on the people of Peoria. I'd like to ask a few questions. How acceptable would it be if students who attend a certain school or a bunch of schools, and any of our school systems would be told, maybe on some days your school won't be open? Maybe on some days, Mr. Manager, you wouldn't have an assistant city manager. You can go right down the line, assistant director of this, that, or whatever. On some days, we will not be able to police a part of the city, potentially. We, as the decision makers of the city, who are ultimately responsible for public safety, are being asked to write a blank check on the safety and security and lives of the people in our neighborhoods, the people we are sworn to protect. Being asked to do, as much as I like the chief, as much as I like the manager, this is something that the policy-making body should never acquiesce in. This is a difference without a distinction. This is a mutant version of what we had before. It still allows for the decommissioning of a fire engine under certain circumstances. And we don't know what those circumstances are going to be, and we don't know when it would happen. It gives way too much authority to the management of the city when we are the policymakers. I hope no one around this horseshoe falls for this. I would much rather see us take a look at the administrative apparatus that runs the city, because cutting some of their jobs is not going to affect public safety. Potentially not having that fire suppression truck out there will affect public safety for the entire city. This isn't a District 4 and 5 issue. This is for all the districts, all the people in our area, and even for the greater Peoria area, when we are asked to give mutual aid. Nice try. I don't buy it. I won't accept it. And it's not because I have any problem at all with the integrity of Chief Louse. It's because ultimately the buck stops with us. And we should say we're not going to do with one less fire truck to put out fires. We were told in 2004 we needed to enhance, and we have done nothing along those lines. Instead, we're being asked to reduce again. We are at the breaking point. Manager, I do appreciate the fact that you've tried to come up with something, but it's no change for me. I don't see it as a change. I see it, if we go along with this, as an abdication on the part of the responsibility of the council to ensure that we have the safety we need for all the people in this community 24/7. And I can't imagine that we would ask any other department to do this. We're asking the fire department to do something we wouldn't ask the other departments to do. Oh, let's see, we won't do code enforcement for this part of the city today. Possibly. Maybe 36 days out of the year we won't be able to quite cover that. Maybe 36 days out of the year we won't have Peoria High School open. Well, maybe we'll just leave it to the principal to decide how to use his resources or her resources, and so on and so forth. It may sound ridiculous, but that's what you're being asked to do. Reject this. Let's send the manager back to the drawing board. Let's take a look at what Councilor Jensen is suggesting and what areas we might otherwise find the monies, but let's not compromise on the safety of the people in our districts and in our community. Thank you, Mayor Artis.
Thank you, Councilman. Further discussion on this or questions for the city manager? Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, what is your plan when the decision was made to offer this up as an alternative? What was your plan for covering that engine?
With
loss of that engine?
The option that we have, again, that we spoke about this afternoon, would shut down a machine when we drop below that 53 personnel on a shift. So up until that point, we would be staffed, fully staffed across the city. But once it dropped below the 53, then we would shut a machine down.
So that's my question. If that were to happen and you have to shut a machine down, and as Councilman Graham indicated, that then there's this loss of that equipment for any fire that may happen where that equipment was, then what is your plan to bring in another piece of equipment similar from someplace else, or just, sorry guys, we don't have that equipment, the place burns down, or is there some backup plan for the event that you drop below 53 and that particular piece of equipment is needed?
No, that piece of equipment would be shut down for the shift, that 24-hour shift. In that event, it would, for 24 hours, be decommissioned.
I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm not being clear. I'm just trying to figure out, so maybe I'll start this way. What does that equipment do, that piece of equipment we're talking about? What does it do?
Depending on the piece of equipment we're looking at, and again, the original that we looked at was Truck 14. Truck 14 does, basically, it performs all aerial operations. If we have a high-rise, if we have a big box store where we would have a fire in that truck would respond to that emergency. That truck company takes care of utilities. It takes care of ventilation. It takes care of secondary lines, search and rescue. It fills in for the RIT team, which is Rapid Intervention Response Team, ready for if we have people that are caught inside or firefighters that would go down during that emergency. There's a wide range of things that it does on fires. It also responds to emergency medical calls.
And so with that in mind, I knew all of that, but I just wanted to make sure that we understood what the loss of the equipment would do. Okay, so knowing that, and a fire occurs in that area, and that equipment is shut down, how do you facilitate those things being taken care of?
We would have to shuffle our equipment around.
That's what I was looking for. And so you do have a plan then to shuffle the equipment around to bring in equipment from someplace else that would do those things.
Right. We would probably move, if it is still Truck 14, we would move Truck 3 up toward the middle of town. It covers a very, very wide area, but we would have to do that to fill those holes in.
Okay, so that's where I was going. So let's say Truck 14 is down. Something happens that requires Truck 14. You'd have to bring something in. Let's say it's coming from Station 3, I think you mentioned.
Right.
What is the distance from where Truck 14 is and where Station 3 is? I know it depends on what the fire is, but I'm trying to determine, are we talking about an additional 3 minutes before that truck gets on site because it's 3 minutes further away from where Truck 14 was, or is it an additional minute and a half? That's kind of where I'm going.
The report back, when we talked about moving Truck 3 to Station 11, The report that's in your packet includes the drive time maps from Station 16 and the drive time maps from Station 14. The difference is about 3 minutes. And just one thing I want to point out, and council doesn't know this, I don't know this, the chief knows this, the assistant chiefs know this, and everyone in the department knows this. When they do training right now, they take an engine out of service to do the training, which means then they're operating with 16 pieces of equipment that day. And then they have to move things around in order to be able to address that and respond to those issues. It happens right now. It goes on without us knowing about it because that's what we've tasked them with doing. All we're asking to do is task them with that same responsibility of saying, you're going to manage your resources. When the staffing levels, get low, then you're going to have to brown out a machine for a little while, which is the term that many other large cities use. Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Baltimore, Boston. This is a common practice. It's a common practice for managing overtime because what happens if you have to fill back, if you have vacancies, you have to hire back on overtime. It's a common practice when you're running training operations. So this is a way to manage the budget.
So basically what you're saying, this happens all the time, we just don't know about it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who hasn't spoken on this yet that wants to ask a question? If not, Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilwoman Moore and City Manager York, because that's what I was going to ask about. If we currently do shut down machines when we do training and those kinds of things, how many firefighters are on shift per day?
When we're fully staffed, we have, if we hire back every position that we are empty right now, we have 64 per shift, 192 line firefighters. That includes our battalion chiefs and everybody, again, fully staffed in the stations.
And then how many do you usually have off per day?
Between the Kelly days, which is the reduction of their FLSA time, and vacation time, we're allowed 10.
So that would be 54?
Yes.
Is that usually the case?
Yeah, we have had more than that with injuries, with sicknesses. We've gone below that 54.
What happens now when you go below that number?
We hire back.
So you won't be doing that under this proposal?
This proposal, we would not up at that 53 personnel, no.
Okay. And then when you do shut down a machine for training or other things, who determines what machine gets shut down?
Depends on where the training is. Depending on which machine needs to go to training, we will try to shuffle the machines around so that we try not to leave any open areas in the city. Even if we do this, we will still have to do the training that we're mandated to do.
Right.
Even going forward. So, I mean, we have training that we're mandated that we have to get done. We're trying to work to get as much of that done electronically, but that's a task. Getting that stuff in place. So, we'll continue to have to train the way we're trained. That's the model that we have right now that we're working under.
So when you do shut down a machine, you don't base it on calls or needs?
We will at times, yes.
Okay.
We'll base it on the number of calls. If we can pull a machine out of an area that the call load is low, we'll pull it out of that area and cover an area that the call load is higher.
And right now, the fire department is not fully staffed, is that correct?
Right.
How many do you currently have?
Right now, we have 17, I believe.
Open? Okay, thank you.
I have Councilmember Euler next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, quick question. Do any of the office staff members have the training and ability to go out on an engine if you were to run, say, one short?
That's kind of what we're looking at. If we have to restructure, we're looking at some of the office staff that will be transitioning back to the line.
So how many of those folks would you say would have the capability to work with if on a given day you were to run short?
Probably 8.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gribb.
Sophocles is in the council chamber tonight, and Sophocles is engaging in sophistry. Here we're being told we have this happening all the time in our city, that we're short. Now we're going to make it doubly worse. This is a great argument. This is nuts, folks. We have entered a chamber of surrealism. Firefighters are at work, and we have a problem. They can be pulled from training at any time. Isn't that right, Chief?
Yes.
Folks, you're being misled. You're giving management way too much power. You are the policymakers who should be saying, we are not going to reduce a fire truck out there on the street any further. Go back, find your cut somewhere else. That's off the table. We're not going to go and say, okay, Mr. Chief, manage it as best you can, and then if something happens on some days, then so be it, and so on, and then feel that we've done a great job. And, we don't want to interfere with the city's ability to manage things because we're only the elected leaders. We're just the elected leaders. They're forgetting who they work for. They work for the people. They work for the elected representatives of the people. But as long as you let them do this, then it's going to happen. What happens when the police department, and Lord knows I support the police department, always have in terms of staffing, it's a basic core service which the city needs to provide. Do we not have overtime when we have problems? And I am not going to get into invidious discriminations between one department and the other because I support our entire effort to provide basic core services for the people of this community. And I'm not going to play the police off against the firemen. That's exactly what certain folks would like to see happen. Not going to happen with this councilman. I've been around the block too many times. You're being played. Don't let it happen. All 5 district council members have to realize that each of us is tasked with the responsibility of protecting about 24,000 people. That is our primary responsibility. All 5 of us. It doesn't matter if it's over there apparently in District 5 and 4 primarily a machine there. If that's not working for fire suppression, that impacts the rest of the city. It's like a spider web. All 5 district council people should say no. And I'm sure we have a few level-headed at-larges, I'm absolutely sure of it, who will reject this out of hand as being wholly irresponsible and a risk to firefighter safety and our employees. There are so many other arguments that can be made, but we're going to see tonight whether the council is going to remain in charge of public safety or if we're going to delegate what should be a non-delegable responsibility. Thank you.
Anyone else like to ask questions of the chief or the manager? I'm seeing no lights, so I'll just add a couple things. And sometimes the emotion with these discussions gets just a little bit over the top. The reality of this discussion has been is not only can the fire department operate with 53, they know how to operate with 53, and they know how to take a machine out of service if it needs to, for whatever reason, whether it's training, whether they don't have enough people to cover the shift, whatever the occasion may be. They know how to do it. They've been doing it forever. That's their job. They know how to do it, folks. Part of the, and it's philosophical. I wouldn't say that Councilman Graves is wrong in his mind of where he views our responsibility. I review our responsibility as a board of directors to establish a budget and to have the manager live within that budget. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. If the council wants to have 153 people on duty and wants to raise the revenue to do that, need to raise the revenue to do that, give the manager direction that we want to double the size of our fire department. These are unbelievably challenging times, as we all know. And we didn't task the city manager with an easy job to come back and say, close this $8 million gap and, don't leave any blood. So he went out and he made decisions across the board, including his office, including our office, all the way down. And here we are, a little bit later than we thought we would be, still trying to do this. And at the end of the day, we still have a $1 million hole that's been carved. The $8 million deficit has been carved down to a little bit over $1 million because everybody put in a little bit of skin. So this is, the manager went from dictating to the chief and his folks that he was mandated to take an engine out, a vehicle out, whatever it ended up being, to a point where he said, which is what happens every day anyway, you manage your department. This is the number you have to work with. It's not ideal. It doesn't give us the opportunity to put everybody that we wanted out there. We can't raise enough taxes or other fees to get us back up to full strength right now. Our citizens, I feel like they're feed and taxed enough. So my outlook on this is not that it's the ideal situation, but I think it goes above and beyond the authority we have to give our city manager policy direction when we get into managing day-to-day operations in the fire department, the police department, HR, any department there is. I don't think that the people that elected us to these positions expect us to go in and micromanage those departments. That's not our job. So, if anybody wants to start making motions about raising $1 million and plus to accomplish what we need in the fire department, then the votes are a vote to accept the manager's recommendation, which is to allow the chief to operate his department with the funding that he's been given, and hoping that we're in a position next year, if the economy improves, to do better. So as it stands right now, I will be supporting the manager's recommendation. I do think it's an improvement over the mandate that was put to him last week or a couple weeks ago. And otherwise, I guess we need to start hearing motions to provide revenue to do otherwise. Anyone who hasn't spoken to this issue yet? Okay. Councilmember Grabe?
Yes, I would like to direct the city manager to find $1 million in administration, in his administration of our city. So I would suspect that those people aren't out there fighting fires and rescuing people, and I would say that's where we should make the cuts. And I think he needs to take a look at many of the administrators in the departments, the assistant this and the assistant that, and come back with something. And I don't want to hear that it's going to affect public safety, because it won't. So that's my charge. You said you gave me a challenge, and there it is. That's a motion. Find $1 million in administration, make those cuts, and bring it back to us for our review.
Okay. Mr. Manager, what would be, in terms of the management, what would $1 million look like if we made $1 million in cuts?
Well, I think when we and I'm going to try and base this off of what was the amount, if we had, well, give me a second, I'll try and put this together. What I'm looking at is what's our total management headcount. It's, of unrepresented employees, it's about 86. And we have a $7.5 million payroll for those 86 unrepresented employees. So, so that would be about a 13% reduction in administration, is what we'd be looking at in terms of that. So, you know, taking $1 million away from the $7.5 million of the unrepresented employees that we have, the non-union employees.
Is there a second on the motion? That motion dies for lack of a second. Discussion on this item or a motion? I can't make a motion. Councilman Jensen?
I guess maybe I need to wait for there to be a motion. I would like to see us, the council adopt this additional revenue proposal in fire and use that money to save at least 2 of the positions, the firefighter positions. So I make that motion.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Grabe. Discussion? Councilman Grabe.
Mr. Chairman, I think that everything should be open for discussion when we have something as important as this that's hanging in the balance. And Manager, I have spoken to you numerous times over the past couple of months about my priorities here. And I have asked you to look deeply into administration. I personally want everybody to know that I feel we've cut our city to the bone. I told you that. I told the mayor that. I've told my colleagues that. We've lost hundreds of jobs, Mayor, over the past 10, 12, 13 years. Hundreds of city positions. We're running the city on a shoestring. I really didn't want to do that. But I deeply believe that we are impacting the safety of our citizens, and that's why I'm willing to even suggest doing something that I don't think we should do. I really don't think we have a city that's being run extravagantly. And I think most of our citizens feel this way, but they do feel that this should be primary. So, you know, I would second your motion, and if we can find the cuts in some other way other than through decommissioning a fire engine, which will affect the lives of all of our citizens, I think it'd be great.
Okay. Councilman Riggenbach?
you, Mr. Mayor. I support the idea of raising these fees to increase the revenue, and some of those haven't been raised for a number of years, and most of those affect special situations. So I totally think that's the appropriate way for us to help whittle away at that. What I would be more apt to support is if we take the manager's recommendation tonight and incorporate these additional revenue streams that will make that 1.1 million less. I think we, as the policymakers, need to be very respectful of the fact that Councilman Sear this evening displayed his financial analysis in a great way as in an earlier discussion. We all have areas of expertise. I'm not a firefighter. I have to respect our professionals to tell us how to do it. I wonder how much of that administration cost is in the fire department. I don't expect an answer now, but I know there's areas that the chief can look at beyond the rolling brownouts. So I think, Councilwoman Jensen, if I don't know if you want to amend it to incorporate the manager's recommendation with those additional things, allowing the professionals that we hire to make those decisions rather than have a hodgepodge of 10 people saying we need a fire truck here and not there. That's the same thing that got us in trouble with the roads years ago, that the council was dictating which roads needed to be fixed. So we've got that pavement condition index now that tells us what needs to be done. And I think that's an example and the operating procedure that we need to incorporate. So
Councilman Jensen?
Thank you. Although I'm open to that idea, I'm not prepared tonight to vote in favor of that proposal until we get some of the information back from the police, or I'm sorry, from the fire chief to some of those questions that I asked. So I would prefer, and I'm happy to withdraw my motion until we get that report back. I do want to see that additional revenue adopted with that money then going to the fire department. I'd like to see it used to save 2 firefighters, but I'm open to doing it the way that you're suggesting. But I would prefer to wait until we got the information back from the fire chief on that proposal, since it was just unveiled tonight verbally, and there's still, questions I think that need to be answered.
Councilman Riggenbach?
Thank you for indulging this, Mr. Mayor. I would be supportive of the motion. I just don't want to tie anybody's hands now that this specific revenue source goes for X number of employees. So if you want to, I would be supportive of the motion to increase the fees to help bridge that gap that the fire department has. But at this point, I wouldn't be prepared to say how that extra $200,000 should be spent. So you see where I'm coming from?
I agree. I would agree to that. As long as we can ensure that money then goes to the fire department.
I think the way to do that would be a corresponding increase in the expense, because the budget proposal that's in front of you is the manager's recommendation, which has already taken out the funding for the positions that we're talking about. So putting in $200,000 is $200,000 closer towards the $1.1 million difference.
Okay. Councilman Gribb?
At some point, I think it would be nice, chivalrous, for us to hear from the leadership of Local 50. These are the men and women who put their lives on the line for us every day. And who go into buildings and rescue people and sometimes develop cancers and so on and so forth because of what they have to be exposed to. I always like to listen to our administration, and I always do. But I also like to hear from our employees. And Assistant Manager Setti, I appreciated the questionnaire that you sent out, and I think many of our employees have some insights that, guess what, the city administration may not have because they do it every single day. And I know this may sound like, oh gosh, we can't possibly let Local 50 say anything to us about these cuts. Well, I would like them to say something about it, and I see the president of Local 50 here, and I don't know if you're prepared to say something, but I'm giving you the opportunity if the citizens, I think the citizens of Peoria would like to hear what you would have to say to the members of this body tonight. Maybe they would say no, they don't want to hear the impact it's going to have. If it's the will of this body, I would say we should grant the privilege of the floor to Local 50 President Ryan Brady, who's in the chamber.
I see no objection from the City Council. Mr. Brady?
Good evening, Council. As many of you are aware from my press conference, I'm Ryan Brady, President of Peoria Firefighters Local 50.
Can you adjust that microphone a little bit?
Sorry, can you hear me? As many of you know from my press conference yesterday, my name is Ryan Brady. I'm President of Peoria Firefighters Local 50. This cut that we are talking about, whether it is Truck 14, whether it is the staffing level falling below 53, will ultimately impact the level of service that we can provide on a daily basis. That might be Engine 10 one day. It could be Rescue 1 the next day. It could be Engine 20. Arguably, that task falls on the chief. But what I will stand before you and tell all of you and the listening audience is the fact that if we go through with this cut, we will not be able to provide the same level of service today, January 1st of 2018. I will entertain questions if anybody has them.
Mr. President, I mean, that's kind of a given, isn't it? We have $1 million shortfall. We know that there's going to be a difference in service levels, not just in the fire department, but across the board in every city department. I mean, that's the unfortunate position we're in. We know that we're not going to have the same service levels as we do right now. We know that. This council knows that.
The issue becomes... Go ahead.
Thank you. So if one of those engines is out of commission, what happens?
Arguably, the next closest company, if it is not out on a call, will backfill for that.
So that's what happens, right? That's what happens right now, right?
Happens right now if the machine is on a call.
Okay. So and then if these decisions happen in 2018. Same thing happens, right? Other engines and trucks will cover for them.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any questions for the president while he's up here? Councilman Gribb.
Fire suppression machine.
Correct. We'll be doing it with 16 instead of 17.
Is that going to have an impact on public safety?
Absolutely it will.
I don't think that's registering. When we talk about a drop in service level, folks, that may sound bureaucratic or administrative, but that means less protection for our people. Am I right or wrong on that? Speak directly to the council because I don't think they understand it.
You're absolutely correct. The issue, whether it is a fire or a box alarm where there are 5 companies that respond, or a regular BLS call, the amount of time that it takes for that neighboring company to respond is lives and property losses at risk. We're adding time to already delayed response times. We already don't meet NFPA 1710 for staffing levels. We don't even meet response times for Truck 14 in the 5th District. And now we are talking about increasing that to the tune of 14 to 15 minutes. That's unacceptable.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
And Brady.
Councilman Euler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've delayed this several times so that Local 50 could go back to their membership and have discussion on how they could work with us to resolve this. So the feedback I got based on the email that you sent us this week was that they came back and said, no cuts from us, we're not going to work with you. I'd like you to discuss that.
In regard to the email that I sent, we are being asked as Local 50, the only labor organization in town, to concede when no other department, no other labor organization is being asked to concede anything. If we were to concede something, we would lose twice. We would lose staffing and we would lose benefits. No other labor organization in this town right now is being asked to do that. So if we're going to have the apples to apples conversation, let's have that. That is not what is being tasked with us right now. Found upon what you're asking, our membership felt it was necessary as we are going to lose staffing levels and benefits and increase response times. We cannot put our lives in jeopardy any further and have that same impact on the citizens of Peoria and sit idly by. That is our biggest concern right now. We are cut to the bone. Make no mistake about it. And when we do fall below 53, we hire back. We put people on companies because 3 people is what we're allowed to respond with. We understand the financial burden that 4 would place if we complied with the recommendation from NFPA 17. But we don't ever bring it up because we understand the financial burden that would place on the city.
Councilman Jensen?
Thank you. I've got just a couple questions. I guess first as a follow-up, Mr. Brady, can you explain your response to Councilman Grabb's question about going from 17 to 16 engines?
Right now, we have 17 machines in the city of Peoria. 4 ladder trucks, 2 rescue squads, and 11 engine companies. Whether that is an engine company, a rescue squad, or a ladder truck, it will arguably change how we respond to emergencies. And if it's truck 14, every other truck except for truck 1, which is at Central House, will be moved. So truck 4 at Station 4 on Jefferson will be moved to Station 8. Truck 3 would be moved from its current location on Armstrong Avenue to Florence Avenue. It will, as Councilman Graham said, it is a spider web. We are playing with an already loaded gun. Meaning, if we continue to shuffle things around and the emergency, because it has happened before, where we have had a structure fire in the south end. When we move resources around from the north end to accommodate the manpower and reduction in the call volume, arguably we are putting our citizens at risk.
So as a follow-up, so you're saying if the fire staffing levels drop below 53, then you'll go down to 16 trucks or vehicles? Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify. I had one more question, but I don't remember what it was, so thank you.
Councilman Riggenbach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually directed to the city manager. And Mr. Brady, let me just tell you before you go that the work of the fire department is something that we would not want to jeopardize, and the safety net you provide for our citizens is critical, so thank you. But I do want to just ask Mr. Manager, on page 38 of tonight's report back, You responded to a question from Councilman Graham about the percentage of cuts in all the departments, because I think it's a little misleading to say that no other departments have been asked to make these cuts. If I'm reading this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, the police department was charged with a 5% reduction, the fire department a 5% reduction, Public Works a 20% reduction, the city manager's office a 24% reduction, legal 10%, HR 10, excuse me, and on and on. Am I reading this right, that those are?
That's correct. That's what would be appropriated in the general fund, again, because the general fund being our largest operating account. When it comes to the public works side, some of that is shifted over into the stormwater utility. Right. When it comes to the manager's side, some of the salaries of the economic development staff would be paid for out of the TIF funds, so there's a portion of that that's allocated there. But it's the direction that was given and the budget that was crafted had all non-public safety departments had their budgets reduced by 10%, and those public safety departments, police, emergency communications, and fire, had a recommended budget reduction of 5%.
And at the risk of sounding naive, as we look at the front line people, whether it's police, fire, or any of our public-facing employees, we see the value that they provide. And again, to comments made earlier, is there other overhead even in our public safety departments? If we need a minimum of 53 firefighters on the street to keep this functioning, are there other areas within that department that could help make up that 5% cut? That's what I would like.
And that was part of the discussion with the chief, that there are some positions that could be eliminated that are in training. There are some positions in the front office that are 40-hour positions that could be eliminated that will go towards not having a number of days that it would be every day where we would be operating with 16 machines on the street, but we would be back at 17. And it's tasking the fire chief with managing his budget, tasking him with saying, okay, maybe I don't need 3 people at the training tower, maybe I only need 2, and moving that position back into suppression. That's telling the fire chief, manage your operations to do that.
I received a text from a former neighbor who was a firefighter and also National Guardsman, and just talking about cutting the front line. So that would be my request in the next week, that perhaps the chief and the staff can come up with other areas where those cuts could be made while maintaining the integrity of the front line. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you. While you're up there, Mr. Brady, I've got a couple questions. How many firefighters do we currently have per shift?
Currently, right now, when we are full staffed, it's 64, but that number could be as low as 53. It never goes below 53.
Okay. And then can you explain for the public what the NFPA is?
NFPA 1710? NFPA 1710 is the National Fire Protection Association's recommendation that regardless of whether it is an engine company, a ladder company, or a rescue squad, that they be manned with a 4-person minimum level of staffing.
And do we currently have that?
We have 3.
Okay, and then they also have recommended response times, is that correct?
That's correct. We are tasked with putting 15 firefighters on the scene, just shy of under 9 minutes for any type of structural response to a fire.
And do we currently do that?
Across the city, no.
Why, do you know why is that the rule? Do you know?
The NFPA rule that requires us to put 15 firefighters on the scene is for our safety, based on the conditions that we're working in, the hazards that we have to mitigate in our tasks, whether it's suppression, search and rescue. Our truck companies do ventilation and shut off the utilities. It's based on a number of tasks in a very chaotic situation.
And I guess while we're talking about this, in one of the reports back that we received today, or I guess late yesterday, was on response times. And I think currently it said in there that we don't currently even meet the NFPA guidelines on response times. Is that correct? Either Mr. City Manager or Mr. Brady? Am I reading that right? I'm trying to find it. I can't.
I think if we look at the aggregate response times across the division, and we could, I don't have that page out in front of me right now.
It's 8.3, I think, 8-3. Looks to me like our average dispatch time, or our average travel response time, is 4 minutes and 38 seconds for 2017, and the NFPA recommends that it be 4 minutes. And our turnout time is more than what's recommended, and so is our average dispatch time. So I guess, I mean, that goes into, supports, our position that we don't want to make that even worse than it already is. We're already not meeting recommendations. So we need to figure out a way to protect as many jobs as we can and to keep the fire engine running and not decommissioned.
That would be very helpful for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Moore?
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Ryan. I do have a quick question for you. How long have you been with the fire department here in Peoria?
I've been with the Peoria Fire Department 7 going on 8 years.
Okay. In that time, when did we go down from 4 to 3?
We've never had 4.
Oh, so
We've always had 3.
So the city has always only had 3?
3 firefighters, yes, in my tenure.
And you've still been able to somehow manage to do what you need to do?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe I'm going to get back to the motion that we have on the floor from a while ago, which was to increase the revenues associated with report back 8.2. I don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but it's the discussion in the room, but I think that we all need to, or all have, recognized that we need to have. And that is the number of calls that our fire department goes on has literally increased exponentially over the years. Nobody's going to disagree about that. The reality of the nature of the calls has also changed drastically over a number of years. As a matter of fact, when we look at one of the very early reports back that identified the calls, the number of calls that we went on, and the percentage, as we've discussed before, 15% are miscellaneous. 82% of the calls that our fire department goes on are medical related, not fire. And 3% in 2016, 3% of the calls that our fire department goes on are fire-related calls. Peoria Fire Department, fire-related calls. So nobody here is minimizing the importance of any of those calls, especially the fire calls. Nobody wants to jeopardize the health and safety of our firefighters any more than we want to jeopardize the safety of our citizens. But part of the
it's not a scare tactic, but part of the discussion that, we're going to be up for grabs if this happens. It's going to have an impact on some of the fender benders, other calls that we dispatch on all the time. And we're going to have that discussion this year in terms of what is appropriate, in terms of which of those calls really is it appropriate that we go on. Do we need to send an engine and a truck and a rescue squad to meet someone from AMT to all these calls? Is that a good, efficient use of city dollars? I don't know. I think we need to have that discussion. But the number of our overall calls being at 3%, the lowest it's ever been in the history of the fire department, that is, we got to keep that in mind, you guys. And look, if we've been having these budget discussions for months now, and everybody knows the number that we tasked the manager to hit, and we all know the amount of, or the percentage amount that came from each department they were supposed to get there. And now at the 11th and a half hour, we can't do this. We knew it was coming. I haven't heard until a motion this evening of any way to provide the revenues to keep the fire service at a particular level, to getting it fully staffed to where it's always been. The city managers put reports out about what that would do to a property tax if we were to get back to full strength. Councilman Graham, I wish that the city was still in a position where we had all those people that we've had to let go over the years and provide that level. I do. We have to live within our means, and we can't do it. We know the largest thing that's hitting our budget every year are pensions and health care costs. And that's not our firefighters and police officers and the others' fault. They get those pensions from the state. Those weren't anything that they negotiated or that we negotiated, but they're there. And they're rising incrementally a lot quicker than our revenues are and a lot quicker than any other part of our city is. It's going in the wrong direction. So we can sit here every week and come back and ask the manager to come back with another report, but at the end of the process, we need to balance the budget. And we need, there's clearly some people here that aren't going to support anything less than what we have today. But to do that, they have to provide us the revenue to do it. It's not going to fall out of the sky. So that's what we're asking for. So we'll have a motion on, a vote on the motion on the floor to provide a couple $100,000 more in revenue. I think there needs to be a little bit of discussion on that because in almost every case, it's a doubling of every one of those fees. And we want to talk about, how it's going to hit business people, and we're going to double all of those fees. We can have that discussion, but keep in mind, there's no lack of passion on the council for our firefighters and what they do. And if there's any thought out there that that's the case, that we don't care, I hope you'd put that to rest because we do care. And we don't want to see any of our firefighters ever put in more danger than they get into every hour of every day anyway. But our job is to balance this budget. Our job is not to tell the fire department how to manage within that budget, and that's what we're trying to get to. Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. It's right to this point here. We're making a decision, and from my perspective, decommissioning a truck is going to risk public safety. So, back to the drawing board for the city manager. Need to come up with some more cuts or come up with the revenues. We are not going to risk public safety. I mean, that's why the people put us here in the first place, is for one of your main things is for public safety. If we can't do that, we're not doing our job. How can you craft a budget that's not going to provide public safety? The number one reason why people voted you in office, number one thing they taxed you to do was that. So, yes, we are cut back as far as we can go. And to make any further cuts somebody's going to get hurt, whether it's our firefighters or somebody in the public out there that trusted us to make the right decision for them. So I'm open to listening to what we can do for more revenues, but I think it also has to be met with more cuts. This picture is not complete yet.
Councilman Graham.
We have, not only with our federal government, but also, I hope, still in the city of Peoria government, a check and balance system. We have certain checks on the power of the executive. It's called the legislative branch, and then we have the courts, which interpret laws. We have a check and balance system. What I'm hearing some of my colleagues say tonight is extremely disturbing to me. It's like, we're too stupid to figure this out. Let's let these professionals do this. Chief Louse, I wonder if you could come on up. And thank you, Ryan Brady. You may be called back before it's all over with. But I had the distinct impression that, based on comments that were made, that maybe there are other places in the fire department, and I do believe we should make some other adjustments here, Mayor, that are down here to help pay for our city. And I'm not leaving those out. But can you go back and find less innocuous ways than having brownouts or whatever, potential risks for the whole spider web of public safety, shredding the fabric of public safety? Is there something else you can do? Because I had the impression that you're charged with coming up with a way of making these cuts. Can you do it without decommissioning?
If we're tasked to go back and look at more options, we will do that.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes. We will
so you can go back
dig.
And you can find other areas to cut without decommissioning a fire engine or reducing the number of people on the rescue squads.
We will definitely go back and work as hard as we can to find any way any other option that we have. Yes.
Well, I think that's something that we probably should have heard before we had this extended round of discussion. Because I think it's been trending for some time that many of us are adamant that, based on public safety requirements, that we not decommission and that we not reduce the staffing on the rescue squad. So I guess we just have to push back so hard that we finally get this kind of response. Thank you, Chief Louse. I look forward to your continued work on the fire department budget, and also I think the council needs to take a look at some of the budget adjustments that have been already recommended and vote them up or down.
We have a motion on the floor to raise the fees indicated on 8.2. It would probably be appropriate for the listening audience just to hear a quick summary of what those include before we do that.
So excuse me, when I get to the correct page, in terms of the revenues that were laid out in the budget report back 8.2, this was previously discussed in budget report back 5.4. This would increase the fire protection service fee for non-residents. It would increase the firework and flame effects permit, the prescribed or construction burn permit, the bonfire permit, the tent fee, the fire report request fee, the place of assembly permit fee, the recreational fire permit fee. It would increase the hazmat fees. It would also increase the fire alarm fees for false alarms by $7,000, and would also increase that would be $7,000 total. It would establish a non-resident hourly charge for vehicle usage by our fire department when a non-resident has an accident and we roll out a piece of equipment, that we would bill them and charge them for those services as well. That revenue increase would be $200,000.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Well, we got it clarified, and you made it about an hour ago. I think the only thing to keep in mind is I see where it says most of these fees haven't been adjusted since 2006. A lot of expenses have gone up in that time. In many of these, it looks like almost all of these cases, it's a 100% increase in all these fees, for the record. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Jensen, seconded by Councilmember Graham. Seeing no further discussion, please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 7 ayes and 3 noes. Voting no, Mayor Ardis, Councilmember Sear, Councilmember Turner. So at this point, we would be at further, if the council wants to give the manager further revenues to bolster the size of the fire department or the police department or the public works department or any other department, this would be a good time to do that. Otherwise, we can, I think that the direction that Councilman Graham mentioned through the chief was to ask the Chief Laus to come back and see if he could identify ways to fill that gap. Is that, Councilman Graham, was that roughly what?
That is correct. And also, we might want to then hold off on some of these other budget adjustments that are delineated in with the gray borders, A tax, H tax, R tax. Might want to hold off till we see what the fire department comes up with before we start increasing any other fees.
Okay.
It might be premature to start voting up or down all this other stuff.
Just
That other
as a point
stuff's
of,
already done.
yeah, the stuff on the front page, the gray was already acted on. So all of those changes and adjustments have already been made. So this
So,
included in the
manager, what kind of shortage do we now have that we were looking for Chief Laus to cover?
Well, right now it's $900,000 instead of 1.1 million is the difference that he would have.
So hopefully we can get some, I heard him say that he will find an alternate way without reducing the staffing on our rescue squads and without decommissioning a fire engine. So then I think we should wait. Thank you.
I look forward to finding out how we're going to magically come up with $900,000 that we haven't been able to do in the last 3 months, Chief. I look forward to that. Further direction or discussion on budget? Councilman Sear.
I just want a little, I get a lot of phone calls and texts that sometimes I'm a little quiet around the horseshoe. I have to say I'm just shocked tonight at how we make decisions without any discussions. All of a sudden we're going to raise some fees on our constituent just by having an hour discussion here in public. And I'm all for transparency, and I think it's great. But as a small business owner, I am just shocked right now that we decide to raise fees on everybody with really no notice whatsoever, and no time to make any research, anything like that. As a small business owner, I have to say, and the youngest time-wise around the horseshoe with Councilman Euler, when I hire people, okay, when I took this job, there's responsibility here. I want to say that, no, we had one employee, and our employee has 10 departments that he's responsible for. And I do not want to manage. I mean, I've talked to all the police officers, the firemen, and everybody in the room here. They know my opinion on this. I don't want to make those decisions. I don't want that job. The police officers, the firemen, while we're running out, they're running in. And nobody, I don't see anybody around the horseshoe has ever done that. That's their job, and we love them for that, for protection. And it's great. And I told them last time I met with the local 50s that I don't know what you guys do. So, because I don't know what you do, if you guys are on the payroll, I am empowering you guys to make decisions for us. I don't know the city managers. I mean, he's got 20 years experience, I think. I don't want to do his job, and I want to do my job. Okay? I don't want to do the fireman's job, and I sure don't want to do the police officer's job, but I want to empower the professional to make the decision for us. And to me, the professional, our city manager, Mr. Brady, the chief, I mean, these are the people that we should be listening to. I mean, and I just want to clarify that because I can't see that tomorrow I'm going to get a lot of phone calls and emails and texts saying, why don't you speak up? As a small business owner, I believe to empowering people, let people do their job and listen to them. That's why I prefer, good God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth so I can listen twice as much as I speak. And only being on the job for 7 months is very important for me to listen to everybody and do my research before I make a decision. And I hate people making motion at the last minute and pushing me into making a decision that I had no chance to do research on. So I want to make sure that tomorrow I'm getting ready for all these phone calls and emails and texts. I mean, that this is the way I feel about our professionals. They should be doing the job. We shouldn't be doing like Mr. Ringenbach said earlier. They're the professional. Let them do their job.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what's really important and what's kind of missing out of here, and maybe some of it falls on me. I was at a neighborhood association last night that really didn't know the details of a fire truck being cut that's close to their neighborhood. And, I want to hear from the professional taxpayers and hear what their thoughts are on, are we risking public safety? And I think that's one part that's missing. And we need to be hearing from those who are going to be most impacted. So I'm going to reach out to every neighborhood I can and have them here so that we can hear from them on if this is important or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, direction for the manager? Yeah, I think, Mr. Manager, along with the information that's going to come back from the chief on closing that other $900,000, it's important, or it will be important, to have something for us to go next to that to say, if these cuts, and there's been a request to have additional cuts in administration, so lay those out, what's still out there that could be cut. And there also needs to be the corresponding revenue. I think people need to know that if we're going to make the decision and the people come out in force and say we want this, they have to understand what that corresponding cost is. So the means that we have to achieve the highest level of revenue is from property tax. So identify what a property tax increase will mean to accommodate that at different levels. We can do the math. But, so people know, a lot of people are concerned, and rightfully so, about this public safety question, but they're also very concerned about more fees, more taxes. Because once they do that balancing act of saying how much more can I afford to pay in property taxes or other fees, then maybe they will say that. I don't know. I'm not hearing that. But I think that that's going to be an important part of the discussion to help people understand the corresponding cost. It's that want versus need, and it's which one you can afford. And most of us don't live in a world where we can afford everything that we want. We try to make it a situation where we are able to afford everything that we need, and there's a big difference. Okay, I'm seeing no further lights on this discussion. Last call, council. Madam Clerk.
We're at public comments regarding the budget.
This is a public portion just to finish out the budget discussion. So if we have anyone, we still have citizens to address that's coming up next, but this is public comments regarding the budget.
Carrie Ohms. For more than 20 years, it has been a classic story of the ant and the grasshopper. The city is never prepared for a rainy day. While it is essential for the city to live within its means or to live within a budget, spending priorities are equally important. If my budget calls for me spending $100 for formula and diapers for my baby, and instead I spend $100 on candy, soda, and video games, I stayed within my $100 budget. I lived within my $100 means, but I missed my priorities by starving my baby and creating rash and a decaying skin condition on my baby's bottom. Such is the case with the city over the past decades. Spending dollars on items which are not essential services of police, fire, and public works. Think about the Gateway building. Sometimes it had an annual loss of more than $400,000 or $500,000 a year, several years in a row. The Ball Stadium, the city forgave a $1 million in loan forgiveness, contributing maybe $1 million or so to help purchase the air rights from Mike Wisdom from Riverfront Village. The City Council needs to get back to providing basic city services, fire, police, and public works. Thank you.
Anyone else regarding budget?
Good evening. As we discuss, our budget and all these services that are getting cut, it's really it's I see it as maybe it's time for us to make not just a review, but I hate to be blunt, but I have to quote what I'm saying. And here's it's dated September 7th, 2017. Peoria journalists they quoted, they said, also cited were 230 city employees with compensation packages between 100 to 150 grand. Again, 230 city employees with compensation packages between 100 to 150,000 dollars, and 139 city employees with annual compensation between 75 to 100 grand. And I'm really puzzled and baffled by why do we have to cut, services which some of our citizens are in desperate need of. I've sat down with the fire department and with many of these departments, public works, and those who are in charge. And I found out in some instances we've had some of our citizens losing lives because of their response time. So I'm trying to be here courteous. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be wise in my choice of words. But I'm really, my advice for the council to revisit all these salaries. I mean, it's, when you go, for instance, to the office of township supervisor, they've had to cut a lot of services, while the township supervisor himself is getting paid in six figures almost. Things like that. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying, people are getting paid, or overpaid or getting paid too much, but why overpay while you don't have it? And instead of taking from those who, deserve these services, maybe, try to bargain these salaries and try to revisit these packages. Thank you very much.
Anyone else on budget?
Council. My name is Terry Spare, and I'm the president of the Homeowners Association for Richwood, Knowles, Northmore Estates. We will be directly impacted by the reduction of an engine, and not so much our area because of the location that we're pretty close to the firehouse, but the fact I see now with the construction on the road, on Northmore Road, with the services they have to do now, they have to cut through the subdivision. So there's different route changes now that we have. And I can see that by losing a truck and somebody coming from other end, if they're not used to the construction things going on, that could be a problem. I do not know how the fire department works. I can only speak on two things that I do know for sure. and then I'll have my conclusion after that. The one thing I do know for sure is I've been a teacher for 34 years and just retired. I have lived through budgets. I have lived through cuts. I have lived through when teachers were asked to go from one side of the city to the other. I have been through where I personally was moved from a classroom to a closet with all my supplies as part of the budget. I was asked at one time to do 3 different schools, and there are people out there that do this, along with the fire department with their job. And I know that when I first started teaching school 34 years ago, everything was in place. Times have changed. We don't have the money. The schools don't have the money. The city doesn't have the money. But you know, they're professionals. We were professionals, and they found out how to make it work. But also, we need to know that it's very taxing on the people that do that. I mean, they're asked to do more and more. I appreciate the comment where about managing the schools, but I want to say one thing that a principal told me a long time ago when I first started. He said, Mr. Spare, I hired you as a teacher to do your job in the school. I don't have to go in your room and see what's going on. So I respected that, and I know that he had other bigger things to deal with, and I could do my job, but I had to go along with the budgets and do those things too. The second thing I want to mention too is this. I saw on the news, and we had a homeowners meeting last night, that they said that for every 2 minutes lost time, the fire chances increase, that it becomes a bigger fire. I know from personal experience, when that was said on the news and said at a meeting last night, my daughter 3 years ago and her husband had a fire in our subdivision. The first thing the fireman said was, 2 minutes more lost time and there would have been a serious disaster here. I know I can speak to that because I personally went through that. So thankfully that didn't happen to our family. I don't want to see it happen to anybody else in the future. And second of all, you have a tough job to do, but work the problem without losing what we have. Find grants, find things like that that will work. Ask the people to help. You know, I'm going to say one thing, it's not going to be very popular, but if we were talking about the Olympics coming to Peoria, we would have money tomorrow. So let's work the problem we have with the people of the city of Peoria. Please, thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to comment on a few of the things that I heard tonight. One of the things that I heard was that the city council's like a board of directors. That doesn't really sit well with me, because when I think of a board of directors, I think of like a major corporation that their only real legal obligation is to raise profit for their shareholders. Doesn't really have any kind of care about what happens to the people at the bottom, how the corporation goes about doing that, whether they pay starvation wages, things like that. So those are the kinds of thoughts that trigger in my mind when I hear that, you know, we need to run government like a business. Because some of you have been here for a while. I know, Mayor Artis, you're on your 4th term. At what point is somebody held responsible for the condition that the city's in? Manager Urich, I know you've been here for a long time. Assistant Manager Setti has said some things to me personally that I find very disturbing as far as understanding this like idea of economic development. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But Mayor Artis, you said that the council's job was to set a budget and then let the professionals work it out. And to me, that sounds like trying to skirt the responsibility of what gets cut, because ultimately that initial action is set by the council. But then you followed that up by saying, we're not saying the fire department is any less important. That's literally the definition of saying it's less important. If your only job is to set the budget, and you're making cuts to that budget, I don't know what else to call that. And then only 3% of the firefighters' calls are fires, and then shortly followed by you're in danger every hour. So those are two conflicting things to say. As far as economic development goes, and I'm very sad that I missed the public hearing about the SSA for Portillo's. I just want to kind of go over the quick timeline on that. Torchia approached Portillo's and knew he wasn't going to get them to pay more money, so he came to the city council to do it. And then Portillo's announces they are coming to Peoria. This was a couple weeks ago. Then there was a massive public outcry about the SSA, and then Torchia got caught lying to the city of Peoria, saying that East Peoria offered free land. East Peoria came out and said, no, we never did that. And so Torchia dropped the request, dropped it. And then my councilman, Montalongo, raises this SSA compromise from the dead. Who are you compromising with if the request is dropped? I don't know who that's a compromise with. And when it comes to this idea of economic development, I mean, this was already passed, so I'm complaining, but these kinds of deals over and over and over and over again with regressive sales taxes are going to lead you to a situation where you have no idea how to raise any revenue and you're cutting services that will literally lead to people dying. People might die because of these proposed budget cuts, especially to the fire department. And when Councilwoman Jensen was asking the assistant manager, Chris Setti, where he was pulling these numbers from, he didn't really have an answer. I just made it up. Effectively the business model of a wishing well, and then you vote for it anyway. I mean, if this is what's been going on, and Councilman Sear, I totally agree with you. I mean, this kind of legislation and taxes and fees on the fly, no research, no real numbers behind it. Councilman Montalongo told me that this SSA for Portillo's was going to bring $100 million to the city. Today it was $80 million. He said people are going to come to Peoria and stay overnight in hotels and catch entertainment while they're in the city because of a Portillo's. No requirements on this project to actually create anything. It's just, we hope so. Don't know where the numbers are coming from, and the public doesn't get that information either. Thank you.
Anyone else on budget? Madam Clerk.
We're at new business.
Any new business to come before the council? New business? Councilman Regenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we're talking about budget gaps and services, I think it's important to remember how the city funds its operations, and the sales tax, for better or worse, is something we're very reliant on. I'm not sure who prepared this Why Shop Local Grow Peoria brochure, but Mr. Manager, Ms. Peterson, I would like to see this out widely through the community. If you spend $100 in a store in the city of Peoria, the city's share of the sales tax is $2.75. If you go to Amazon, buy the same exact items, the city's share of that is 0.009 cents. So if we're really concerned about providing the services for our citizens, if you're really concerned about the future of our city, shop local. Shop those brick and mortar stores in the city of Peoria, because that is what's going to help make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just make an announcement about a program that's happening out at the North Allen Road Library, the link on the North Branch Library. It's called Dream Girls, their third anniversary celebration. It's Sunday, November 19th from 3 to 5. There will be a small meal, cake and ice cream for the young girls. Dream Girls is an organization that exists to provide mentorship and opportunities for girls who desire brighter futures. And those girls who have been participating in the program, there will be awards will be given out to those girls for their sticking with this program. The person who is behind this program is always seeking women to volunteer to help mentor girls who would otherwise not have anyone that they could just call upon just to talk sometimes. And there's a lot of things happening in our community, and this program, this Dream Girls program, I think is something that we should all be able to get behind. That's this coming Sunday, November 19th from 3 to 5 at the North Branch Library. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other new business to come before the council? New business? I would just mention publicly, as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, that former Mayor Ransburg passed this week. The memorial service is this Saturday at 10 a.m. at First Federated Church, 3601 North Sheridan Road. Seeing no other lights, Madam Clerk.
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council.
Citizens to address, name and address for the record, please. 5-minute speaking limit. Up first is Carrie Alms.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Carrie Alms, and I'm with Friends of Riverfront Park. Per the recent National Park Service's October 31st, 2017 conditional approval letter sent to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for the conversion and therefore the destruction of Riverfront Park, the NPS details that the city cannot count on the $66,000 excess fair market value banked credit. The city is short fair market value and has to find more replacement land, and the City Council has directed staff only to use riverfront property as replacement land. The volleyball courts must be relocated south of the riverfront per the environmental assessment. Based on 2017 event programming, the volleyball courts cannot be relocated to this location without a serious negative impact on riverfront events, which would jeopardize millions of dollars of revenue for Peoria businesses and already depleted city coffers for 2018 and subsequent years. The possible relocation of the playground equipment would be costly with no identified funding source and other complications. The city must relocate other lost recreational amenities within Riverfront Park, must appraise the public access road, and must appraise and remove the excluded boat club on the Deptquire playground land. City and local businesses were the beneficiaries of more than 50,000 people visiting Peoria, coupled with significant economic gain during the Tall Gate and Tall Boys Music Festival and the Bud Light concert series, where many concerts were held in the same area where the volleyball courts are mandated to be relocated. Economic benefits ranging from $150,000 to $870,000 per concert were received according to calculations from the Peoria Convention and Visitors Bureau, who estimated that 10 of the concert dates exceeded $300,000 in economic impact to the Peoria area. Obed and Isig's microbrewery a half a mile away doubled their sales. The Mark Twain Hotel experienced an uptick in bookings over the weekend, including the hotel being sold out, as well as increases which revitalized the Steamboat Festival. Still more troubling news looms on the horizon. The city does not have the $66,000 excess fair market value bank credit, and recently recovered documents show the city is actually in arrears for the Southtown to Rocky Glen conversion. The city's appraisal was based on a 95.41 acre parcel subject to a survey for a value of $336,000. The city had the survey done. The acreage was reduced to 66 acres, but the fair market value remained at $336,000. How does that work? decrease the acreage by almost 30 acres and the fair market value remains the same. This scenario is simply not permissible under the National Park Service LWCF regulations and federal law. Meanwhile, the city continues to face budget deficits for this year and $5 million projected in years to come. We need to point out that the Friends of Riverfront Park has done and continues to do extensive research, and we have a good track record. We said the city's appraisals were not done according to the required federal Yellow Book appraisal standards, and the National Park Service to IDNR letter details that the city is again being asked to do appraisal revisions, as well as the bank fair market credit should not be allowed. The NPS agreed with us. The city must understand that Friends of Riverfront Park's intentions are in earnest to preserve the Riverfront Park as a public park according to what the people of this city want. We ask the City Council to withdraw their National Park Service conversion application and to not sign the conversion amendment. If the city continues on this path, it is FORP's intention at this time to file a lawsuit to save the park. It is the last thing that we want to do, especially in these troubled financial times. But Friends of Riverfront Park will take that action if the city continues to pursue this project, and it looks like the city will transfer riverfront property to the developer or do anything to destroy Riverfront Park. I have a copy for each council member, and I would ask that my statements be included in the public record. Thank you.
Next up is Terry Speyer. Is Terry still here? Okay. Next up is Doug Johnson.
I'm Doug Johnson. I live at 2805 West Larchmont Lane. First of all, I just want to make a quick side note that when the kid in Pekin went missing, a young white kid, it didn't take all that long for an investigation to start. And we currently have a 20-year-old young black girl who's missing. And as far as I'm aware, nothing has been done about that. So I think that there's precedent to maybe requesting something like that. I don't know what the recourse is, but I think that's something to be really important to focus on. Going back to what I was saying about economic development, in a city where we rely very heavily on sales tax, as Councilman Riggenbach said, it would make sense, or it would be helpful if the majority of workers who are low-income workers had more money, right? Because then they're like 100, I think the studies show that 100% of low-income workers' money goes back into the local economy. So if you raise the minimum wage, that would immediately inject a ton of money into our local economy. And most small businesses, and I work for a small business of 10 employees, nobody where I work makes less than $15 an hour. The majority of small businesses pay more than what a lot of proposed raises in the minimum wage would be. They have to compete with these national chains to keep anybody to work there. So I think it would be a really good idea to look at the minimum wage, because we have a lot of national chains, especially like at Westlake, where we're bringing in a national chain and having consumers pay for a developer who owns over 100 restaurants, who apparently can't afford it himself. Those kinds of things would help a lot in our local community, and the biggest beneficiaries of that extra money would be small businesses, small and local businesses. But even if not, since we're so heavily reliant on sales tax, maybe it's where my politics lie, but raising the minimum wage would be like the best thing we could do if we want to immediately start bringing in some more revenue. And I'm a proponent of 15. even if it's not 15, it would help. But anything less than a livable wage is a massive injustice in my mind. And we have a whole city of people who, one, not only don't have jobs, but they don't make enough money to not live in poverty. And anybody who works 40 hours a week, no matter who they are, should not have to live in poverty. And the majority of people who work these jobs are the majority of people who would benefit from a minimum wage increase, at least across the country. Their average age is 36 years old. They're women, and they have children. I don't know if anybody here ever thinks about raising the minimum wage, but it might be a good idea to focus on something like that. And just to go back to one more point about the whole Portillo's debacle, if you're going to go on your constituents' Facebook pages and accuse them of lying and not having the right information, Councilman Montalongo, I would feel that, when that constituent then requests the information that you're claiming, it might be a good idea to provide that information. Because going onto your constituents' Facebook pages and accusing them of brainwashing people and things like that just doesn't seem like the kind of behavior that a public servant would engage in, especially when they raise these SSA deals from the dead that nobody was asking for, with people who get caught lying about why they're raising that request. Thank you.
Amaral Samney.
Amaral Samney, 3922 North Columbus, 61614. Well, it's really awkward here. The third guy, just the same people that spoke are speaking again. I hate to just repeat the same scenario and bore you guys to death, but I'll mention in just a couple of minutes. I'm here. I just wanted to raise a couple of issues tonight. I was glad to bring the first one about all these packages and all the employees getting overpaid. In my opinion, we're just giving money away that we cannot afford to pay, at least meanwhile. But I also wanted to speak about another issue, which is, school district. I know city council is totally different from the school district. And the school district I wanted to mention tonight here is 150. And we are all aware that they get their funding directly from the state. So you guys have no control over this. But, I've been advocating for almost, this is my second year advocating for that issue of busing. It's getting cold. It's, just to give you a little background, if you haven't heard about, that controversy, but after the budget cuts that were done by the state, it affected the kind of funding that the district was getting, the school district was getting, so they had to cut on busing. So any student who lives within 1.5...
Mr. Osamney, I stopped the clock, so this isn't costing you any time. The policy on the citizens to address is issues that we have impact on. I appreciate your whatever it is with the school. We don't have anything to do with the schools. We have nothing to do with state funding of the schools. So we need your comments to be specific to city council business, please.
Okay, well, I was just getting to the point that, this is one city, right? So anything that happens in this city affects all of us, regardless of whether it's a school district or city council. I just wanted to propose an initiative, and I just wanted to propose it from here, from this pulpit, is about sponsoring, or I call it Kid Zoom's project or initiative, which for our citizens to sponsor the transportation of these children to school. Because, like I mentioned, if you are living within less than 1.5 mile radius from your school, then you don't qualify to get picked up by a bus. But I wanted to mention that, instead of us letting our kids walk to school 3 miles a day, we should at least do something about it as a city council. I understand you may say, well, I don't care because I only care about my business. But guess what? These are the same citizens who elected you in your seat right now. So if you are elected to serve, then you should be concerned about their struggles and their hardships. So I will start by myself sponsoring 10 students to go to school a year. I will do that myself, and hopefully others will come afterwards, and just do the same number, or more or less, whoever can afford whatever they could, just do it. But we can't just stand helpless as citizens of Peoria and City Council and let the school district, and trust me, I've talked to them numerous times since they've had that controversy, and nothing was done about it. And just wanted to at least bring up the topic and let you know that there are people out there who care and they would like to sponsor these kids to go to school and just have a ride taking them to school instead of walking in freezing cold 3 miles a day. That's all I wanted to say. But I understand if this is could sound irrelevant to some of you, but I hope that you can consider what I said tonight and take it to heart. Just as a citizen of this city, not just a member of a city council. Thank you.
Anthony Walraven.
Hi, my name's Anthony Walraven, and I'm here. I kind of chuckled when I walked in because you have all these shop local signs, and then you voted to give a kind of a sweetheart deal to an out-of-city developer for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's kind of ironic, but no. The main thing that I want to kind of talk about is the fire department, because I didn't know some of the stuff. Like, I live in the 2nd District, and Councilman Graeb has been really, really good on this issue. And I didn't know that in 2004, there was a report commission that said that we needed to hire more firefighters and more engines, and we haven't done that since 2004. The city's gotten larger, and we have more fires than Springfield with less firefighters to fight them. We have more calls than Springfield with less firefighters to fight them. But I did notice that the Riverfront Park is going to go through. And I noticed that the city's already spent 6 figures worth of money to help that go along. And there's people in town that say to actually take away all the stuff from Riverfront Park and move it where we'll need to move it, that it could mean that we would float up to a $4.5 million bond for that. And I'm sure that there's people on this council that would vote for that, and that would also vote to cut the fire department's budget. And I would just really, really wonder who you're representing when you vote to give sweetheart deals to land developers while you cut public services that are already stretched thin. It's not like these public services are already getting exorbitant amounts of funds. They've been cut since at least 2010. So maybe we don't have enough money to fully fund our public services, but if that's the case, we surely don't have enough money to give to land developers, and we surely don't have enough money to float bonds to help them build an apartment complex. It's kind of disheartening, because the biggest problem with the city of Peoria is the lack of good public services, and it's not the fault of the people providing those public services. It's kind of shocking to me that representatives of the firefighters don't get to sit on this side of this while these things are being discussed. Surely they know more about their job than the city manager. Surely they know more about their job than any of you. Their comments should be on the record just as much as the city manager's comments should be on the record. And it's sad that they have to call a press conference outside of City Hall the day before the council meeting is held so that their voice can be heard. If I work at a bank, and if I have a problem with my computer, I call the IT guy and I listen to what he says. If I have a question about fire safety in the city of Peoria, I would ask the firefighters union. I would not ask anyone else. So I just think in this time, in a time when people are leaving the city, they are not leaving the city because we don't have a 153-unit apartment complex that most of us can't afford to live in. That the idea was came up with when Caterpillar was still the corporate headquarters of in Peoria. That's why that idea that's why the idea came about. So the economic conditions have changed in that sense, and you keep pushing forward with it, while at the same time you cut public services. And all that does is it affects me, it affects everyone that lives in this city, so that Willie Torchia, who owns almost 100 restaurants all over this state, can get a tax subsidy. So that Gary Matthews can get a tax subsidy, can have my tax dollars pay his interest payments on a hotel. Portillo's is going to bring $100 million into the city of Peoria. The Marriott Hotel was going to make Peoria a downstate destination for conventions. There was going to be retail space on the first floor. It was going to be so amazing. Never materialized. So, the $100 million amount of money that's going to come into Peoria because of one hot dog stand, I've heard that before, and I think most Peorians have heard that before, that every time we give money to a millionaire, we're going to get more of it back than we gave in. And we have a hotel that's teetering on bankruptcy. We have a Cub Foods by the house where I grew up that's completely empty. And we probably will have an apartment complex that in 5 years will have about half of its rooms full. So at the same time, we won't have as many firefighters to put out the fires in those places. I strongly urge you to reconsider these cuts to the department. Thank you.
April Allen Scott.
Members, I'm coming again before you today first to say thank you. I have got a lot of community support. I've gotten a lot of help from the police department, and I appreciate what we've done, but it's still a long time coming. I still haven't seen my daughter, still haven't heard from my daughter. I need to know what is going on, what is being done to locate her. As a parent, I spend most of my life, as most parents do, watching out for my kid, making sure they don't get lost. Been doing that since they were little. You get older, you're still doing the same thing. You're still trying to keep track of them. You're making sure they're okay. I can't do that now because I don't know where she is. I need help. I've spoken with the detective several times, and it seems to me that he is overwhelmed with the information that he's getting. I don't know that he has enough help going through the information he has. I don't know that he has enough help talking to witnesses or potential leads, being able to follow through. I don't know where the problem is. I know I've offered as much help as I possibly can. I know that there are people in my group campaign for my daughter who are also assisting the detectives involved in the case. I've followed up with people who have given information to the detectives in the case, who have also left voicemails for the detectives in the case. Calls are not being returned. Information is not being followed through on. And I'm just wondering if he needs help. I don't know if he's on this investigation by himself. I know we're told there's a team of people working. I've never met the team, so I don't know who they are. I don't know who to ask for transparency from. Right now, I just need to know, are we making any progress? I hear we're talking about budget cuts, and right now I'm like, wow, really, my daughter's still missing and we're doing budget cuts. I understand things need to be done, but life still goes on for the rest of us while we're making cuts. I'm not happy about what I'm hearing tonight, not with the fire department, not with the police department. I don't think we should be doing cuts. But again, it's not my call to make. I think we should vote on that and let the citizens vote on what we want cut. Right now is not the time to be making changes with so many people missing. Since I found out my daughter's missing, I've joined a lot of different media sites where there are other people missing. And I discovered there are quite a few people missing, not only in our state, but states adjacent to us. We need to find these people, not just my daughter, but those people too. When we make cuts, we forget there are other people who are going to be affected, and some of them can't do anything to defend themselves. Example would be my daughter. I need help. I want Peoria to know that I do appreciate them, but we still have somebody that's missing. And then again today, I see there's an article that there's a man been missing since April, and he hasn't been found. I'm not understanding how we could be making cuts in areas where we need people. We need people to find people. We need people to help people. It's all about the people. If you could help me understand what we're doing, I can be of more assistance to the police department and to the community. I have people looking at me, not only here in Peoria asking questions, but areas around Peoria. The other 50 states are also involved. I've got people from all over I'm getting help from and leads and that. And I can't answer any questions. I can't give anybody any leads or tell them, well, I shouldn't be giving leads out anyway, but I can't tell them what I found out because I haven't found out anything. I don't know anything. All I know is she's still not home and that I'm constantly giving information and getting nothing back. I need to know what's going on with the case. I need to know where we are and if we're making progress. And if not, what do we need to do to make progress, to find out where she is? Apparently she isn't deceased. We haven't been able to find anything showing us that she is deceased, so then where is she? Thank you.
Mrs. Scott, I would just ask if maybe if you could just, after the meeting, just come up here. Chief Mitchell would like to speak with you for a few minutes, too. Thank you. Karen Smith. Is Karen Smith still here? Okay. Tanisha Causey. Is Tanisha here?
Hi, I'm Tanisha. I just came to support Miss Allen. I don't know this young lady that's missing. I've never came to a city council meeting before. I don't understand myself. I didn't even know this young lady was missing until I happened to see it on social media. And as she said, that just is kind of disturbing to me. There's not enough public outcry for looking for this young lady's whereabouts. You know, I've helped make flyers. I've taken my children. I've brought my daughters with me tonight. You know, as she said, that it has to be some type of transparency for people to put it in perspective is, what if this was my daughter? You know, who would actually be out looking for her? And I don't know where all that responsibility lies, but I just think it needs to be more attention than just us on social media posting about it, you know, city council or the police department. And, you know, it's definitely not time for any cuts going on right now. And I don't really know. My daughter is 7 and she's here, and she's been here with me since 5:30 tonight. And so I came up here because she wrote this letter, and she's 7, so she can't come up here and speak. But she said, to anybody, where is Alexis Scott now? But what if that was your kid? You would be out there looking for her. Boom. So if my 7-year-old can say that out of the mouth of a babe, where is the help? I'm not seeing it. Thank you.
Josh Battles.
My name is Joshua Battles of 1318 Aiken. I'd just like to start off with a quote that I live by from Malcolm X. He says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So each and every day we wake up, if we don't have a purpose, if we don't have something that we're passionate about, something that fires us up about, then we're dying. And you're not living. If you're not afraid to die for something, then you're not living. And as far as my cousin goes, and as far as the people that are here supporting me and supporting my cousin, I appreciate all of you guys. But we need a lot more help. And it's sad that it seems like, coming even from a minority, because there's other obstacles that I faced before, and it seems like any time that we need help, we have to scream, we have to beg, we have to break stuff, we have to cause hell, we have to cause a riot to be heard. And it's wrong. It's not right. And just as she just said, if it was anybody else's child missing, you'd be just as angry and fired up as I am. You should be. This is somebody, we're all connected. How many of us travel somewhere and we run into someone where we know someone from somewhere else? It's a small world. We all know that. That means the connections can be made. People aren't speaking up. People aren't talking. People aren't stepping up. And it's wrong. So if anything that I close by, we need to remember that if you don't stand for something, you will fall, certainly for anything. Thank you.
Next is Christina.
We're artists. I appreciate this time. It's been a long evening. I wanted to say something first before I go into April is my first cousin, and so her daughter is my second cousin, and it's been extremely difficult. And for myself, I try to be as strong as I can for my son, which just spoke, who is an excellent school teacher here and been an excellent son. And it's hard when you're trying to tell your children that there's equal justice in this world. I am, no doubt, mixed. However, I am black. I do have black blood running through my body. So when it comes to issues that affect our community, when Alexis went missing, first, SUV Law and Order is a show, and some of the writers that I very much are friends with and write. I don't write with them, but I follow some of their writings, and I work along with a lot of other activists in some of these areas. And one of the things is until Alexis went missing, I had an idea of what trafficking, what some things were, but I did not know, just like you, some of you, how bad it is in the city of Peoria, Illinois. It's here. It's real. It's white. It's every color that breathes. It's here. It's in our warehouses. It's in our blocks. I live out in Pioneer Parkway. Been out there for years. It's everywhere. I talked to a social worker a couple of days ago out by Allen Road. She said, I had to quit my job. She said, I remember when you used to be my Sunday school teacher. She said she's in her 20s. She said, I had to quit my job because I was trying to get one of the girls out of trafficking. These young ladies are being sold into prostitution rings right here, right under your noses, our noses. If Alexis is not alive, like I told April, her life stood for something, because had I not have seen it, I thought, Peoria, one of the things I think about the most, Chicago, bigger cities, have a lot of family from California to Vegas. I never thought in a million years, after looking up so many young ladies using others' names, sitting up with their families in churches and in school, beside their friends, as if nothing is wrong, and living a whole separate life. As soon as I heard Alexis had gone missing, I was having nightmares. I have them because of my own reasons. But when this happened, I have not been able to go out to another search. I have not been able to sleep 24 hours a day. But because I started researching and I had no idea what I was going to find, these young ladies, they're right here. You may think that they went to a Friday night party. You may think that they're not doing drugs. You may want to think that your children are doing the right thing. And I'm no different. I have grandchildren. They live in Oklahoma. I found out a appraiser right here in Peoria. They can own the same addresses in other states that 7, 8 digits long. Right next to them are dumpsters. 10 blocks down.
Christina, can you just, can I just ask you to just wrap it real quick here for us? We try to keep that at 5.
Our strip houses, gentlemen clubs. So, all I urge you to do is, in Alexa's case, if whatever the outcome is, I urge you, for your neighbors, for your loved ones, all over the world, in whatever city, not just here, always make sure you know where your children are. Whether they like it or not, have other parents something. Sorry, I didn't get to the fire stuff, but I wanted to, but maybe next time. And thank you. Allow me a minute, I will say something. I worked for over 30 years in the medical field. I can tell council here that firemen, any police officer, or anything else. Budgets, whatever, everything is important. We can have 6 to 7 ambulances show up in an emergency room, bringing in elderly, young, geriatrics, whatever, and not have but 2, maybe 2 more ambulances from miles apart. Who's gonna come, right?
Mr. Sierra?
I thought I'd never get to this mic tonight. Some of you people just keep on and on, you know. If you're against something, just say so, you know. You don't have to keep unwinding. This is already going on 10 o'clock. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning to go to church. And I pray for people like this young lady that we can't find right now, and I pray for you people too. But I only got 5 minutes. If I had time like some of you people are sitting up there, I could really say a lot. But I support our public safety. I've been close to them since the big war back in the 40s. And I always say, you only get what you pay for. Even if it takes to up your taxes a little bit, you're not going to take that money with you when you die, you know. And we're all afraid we're going to lose our money, and it's sad. That's sad too, to me. You know, I was born poor, and I worked for minimum wage at one time, and I always say it isn't how much you make, it's how you spend it. And so all I got to say to you people that are trying, if you don't want to support the public safety, just say no. Don't keep egging it on, because it's already going on 10 o'clock. And that's really, I'm an old man. You can tell by the way I walk. And, but we got to get this, all this budget taken care of. You see, I got my late father-in-law, he was a fireman here in Peoria. He was at the old fire station up there on Star Street, across from where the Lutheran school is, Christ Lutheran. There was a fire station there. There was a fire station right across the street from Old Southside Bank. That's where I had a lot of experience, and the fire people there took care of me there too. Made sure that I was walking safe on my paper routes. So let's try to get this straightened up, If you're against it, speak up, don't keep hashing it around, After a while, it gets to be monotonous. And with that, I say peace, and let's go home.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to come back. One of the things I did want to clarify, and I guess listening to some of the feedback afterwards, $900,000 for us to try to come back and try to find that, if you will. We have really worked hard and come up with a lot of options. And the option that we had, that we came up with, was an option that we sat down this afternoon and felt that it was an option that we could all work with. I guess I just wanted to be clear about that if I am tasked with going back to dig more, I'm going to do what I'm told to do. But I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing, and I know I'm probably they're probably going to be upset that I do this, but I have two of my division chiefs here tonight. And this Friday is their last day. They're retiring. Chief Macklin and Chief Jones, both here with us tonight. And again, with 29 and 30 years of experience, they will be retiring from the fire department. I just wanted to wish them the best, and again, I just wanted to clarify that we sat down this afternoon and we came up with a workable solution. I just wanted to, I guess, clarify that. Thanks.
We do not have an executive session, so we would be at.
We have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Sears, seconded by Councilman Euler. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. We'd like to thank H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCBU, as well as cable channel 22. This evening's meeting is adjourned.